After dinner, it was time for the restaurant to open again. Amy held a blueberry ice cream cone in her hands, and slowly licked it while sitting on a stool behind the counter. Ugly Duckling lay on her lap, and it looked up at Amy's ice cream while licking its lips. The introduction of ice cream brought variety to the restaurant's dessert options. Not only was it quite popular among children, adults were also quickly won over by its cool and delicious flavor. In particular, having an ice cream after eating a spicy grilled fish was like jumping into an icy fjord after bathing in a pit of lava. The sense of satisfaction was simply indescribable. "I'll get a blueberry ice cream first, then a medium-size medium spicy grilled fish. After that, I'll finish off with a chocolate ice cream." Vivian was back again in her baggy male attire, and she took a seat as she gave Yabimiya her order. This was a combination that she had devised after careful consideration. The sweet and sour blueberry ice cream would act as an appetizer, followed by the delicious spicy grilled fish as the main course, with a rich sweet chocolate ice cream to cap off the meal. It was sheer and utter perfection. "Sure, please wait a moment." Yabimiya nodded with a smile before turning to attend to the next customer. Tisk, a man who can make such delicious food really is irresistible to women. Thankfully, I'm no ordinary woman, Vivian thought to herself as she looked at Mag through the kitchen window. Her gaze then fell on Gloria, who was sitting in a corner, and her eyes immediately lit up. When did such a beauty turn up in Chaos City? Vivian was a little surprised. This woman's features, figure, and disposition were all exquisite. As someone who was constantly paying attention to the Chaos City beauty rankings, Vivian was very sensitive to the emergence of new beauties in the city. The woman that she was looking at was at least worthy of a berth in the top 5 on the rankings, but she had somehow never heard of nor seen her before. The woman was sitting rigidly in her seat, and she kept on stealing fleeting glances toward the kitchen before turning away. She kept on repeating those motions over and over, and Vivian found her to be quite amusing. Looks like not only normal women fall for him, even a beauty like her is unable to resist the allure of his food. The owner seems to be a good man, so he won't dabble in casual relationships with his customers, right? If he dares to do that, he'll have to answer to me. Vivian thought to herself. There are almost no customers visiting the textile shop, and a lot of stock in the warehouse has already grown mold due to improper maintenance. The customer service attitude of the employees is also very terrible. We can't even make sure that we're breaking even at the moment. How can I make the business profitable in a month? Gloria was in a bit of distress as she pondered her situation with furrowed brows. She leaned back in her chair, and sighed to herself. Even though I'm not really achieving much, I still feel exhausted every day. Here's your sweet tofu pudding and Yangzhou fried rice. Yabimiya placed the 2 dishes in front of Gloria, and smiled as she said, "Our restaurant just released a new product called ice cream today, perhaps you can give it a try. Its sweet and icy flavor can dispel all concerns and worries." Gloria wanted to refuse the offer, but her gaze then fell on the ice cream cone in Amy's hands, and she hesitated momentarily before asking, "Is that ice cream that little Amy is eating over there?" "Yes, Amy is currently eating a blueberry ice cream. There are 4 flavors that you can choose from." Yabimiya nodded with a smile. She opened the menu for Gloria in a thoughtful gesture, and flipped over to the ice cream page. "Blueberry, chocolate, mocha, and vanilla? Is this made from some sort of fragrant grass?" A hint of curiosity welled up in Gloria's heart. She closed the menu, and turned to Yabimiya with a smile as she said, "Please get me a vanilla ice cream." "Sure, please wait a moment." Yabimiya nodded with a smile before turning to the kitchen. Soon, she re-emerged with a light yellow vanilla ice cream, and handed it to Gloria as she said, "Here's your vanilla ice cream. Enjoy." "Thank you." Gloria accepted the ice cream with a nod. She then turned her attention to her vanilla ice cream, upon which her eyes lit up. There was a light brown cone wrapped in a thin paper shell, sitting on top of which were 2 light yellow balls of what was presumably this ice cream. It was still autumn, but the two balls appeared to have been made from actual snow. Furthermore, they were both very smooth and fine, emanating an unidentifiable alluring scent, as well as hints of frosty coolness. So I'm supposed to lick it? Gloria hesitated momentarily before emulating Amy and taking a lick of her ice cream. The ice cream slowly melted on her tongue, and the fragrant flavor of vanilla wafted throughout her mouth with rich milky undertones. The icy sensation made her tongue go numb for a split second, immediately following which her eyes narrowed unconsciously with bliss from the delectable flavor of the ice cream. She felt as if she could see a figure in a pristine white chef's suit walking slowly toward her. There was a warm smile on his handsome face and a look of scorching passion in his eyes. He raised his hand and gently caressed her chin, and she felt as if an electric current were running through her entire body, giving her a sense of entrancement. Phew! Only after a long while did Gloria slowly open her eyes. She looked at her ice cream, then at the busy figure in the kitchen, and she felt as if all of her worries had been instantly wiped away. None of the adversities that she was facing appeared to be as insurmountable as they had seemed a moment ago. At the very least, she could enjoy delicious food here, and look at Mag as he worked in the kitchen. The experience was very soothing for her. Go, Gloria! You made a promise to yourself, so you can't give up just because things are a little tough. A faint smile appeared on Gloria's face as she took another lick of her ice cream. She closed her eyes, and looked on as he approached. Even though it was only her imagination, she was still very content with the imagery that the ice cream evoked in her mind. The two balls of ice cream were quickly consumed, and she began to devour the crunchy cone, which hadn't softened from the melting ice cream at all. The cone's flavor was a delightful combination of milk and eggs, and both the texture and taste were exquisite. This ice cream is so good. Gloria wore an exuberant smile on her face as she looked at the paper shell in her hand. She looked up at Amy, who was wearing a gorgeous little purple magician robe, and her eyes lit up as a thought occurred to her: Amy's robes are really adorable. The textiles shop has a lot of excess stock that stagnated for a long time, and it'll be very difficult to try and sell them as they are. However, if we can make clothes from those textiles, wouldn't it be easier to sell them? If we make the items of clothing in accordance with the style of clothing that little Amy wears, they should be very popular. From what I've seen, it seems like all of little Amy's clothes were made by Mr. Mag. As soon as that thought appeared in Gloria's mind, it refused to go away. She had spent an entire day thinking about how to make the textiles shop a profitable business, and even the vastly knowledgeable and experienced Mars had told her that he would need some time to devise a strategy. There were very few people on the market that sold ready-made clothes. Most of them sold textiles to customers, who then took the materials to a seamstress's to make clothes. In that case, the clothes would almost always be a perfect fit, but it would take a long time to make one item of clothing. However, Gloria's idea was that she could choose a certain style of attire that she thought would be popular, then make different sized items of clothing in accordance with that style. Customers could try on the clothes to see which size fitted them, thereby eliminating the need for a trip to a seamstress, conserving the customer's time, and allowing the excess stock in the textiles shop to be put to good use. Gloria was quite introverted, and hadn't interacted with many people in the past, but she read many books at home. Not only did she read books from the Moreton family's collection, her father also brought her many books from the Chaos School. Those books helped her while away countless boring hours, and at the same time, they bestowed her with a lot of knowledge, as well as broadened her horizons significantly. Her proclamation to her grandfather that she would surpass Sheer Buffett one day was not just a hot-headed remark. She simply wanted a chance to use what she had learned. As for whether that was enough for her to surpass Sheer Buffett, that actually wasn't very important to her. Perhaps I can go back and discuss this idea with Mr. Mars. He has a better understanding of Chaos City's market than I do, and if it's indeed a viable option, then I can approach Mr. Mag to strike a deal with him. Gloria didn't jump the gun by approaching Mag immediately. Instead, she looked at Amy, and thought back to all of the items of clothing she had seen Amy wear in the past. As she reminisced, she murmured to herself, "Little Amy has many different styles of clothing, and all of them are very unique and adorable. If Mr. Mag is willing to design clothes for our blue suede textile shop, then perhaps we can usher in a new fashion trend in Chaos City." Aside from cooking, Mr. Mag also has brilliant skills in many other areas. Gloria was full of admiration for Mag. In her eyes, he was a kind gentleman, a super chef, a master fashion designer. What a mysterious man he was! Was there something that he couldn't do? "I want a blueberry ice cream. I want a chocolate ice cream." The ice cream was selling extremely well. Due to the fact that it was machine-produced, and Mag only had to mix the ingredients in advance, there was no concern of supply being insufficient to cope with demand. Compared to the conflict between the sweet and savory tofu pudding factions, the conflict between the flavors of ice cream wasn't anywhere near as intense. The ice cream cones were limited to 2 per person per meal, so a lot of customers chose 2 different flavors of ice cream at once. The different flavors of ice cream each had their merits, so everyone was looking forward to being able to taste the other 2 flavors. Earlier, Mag had taken some time to inquire Crasso about the match tomorrow, and Crasso confirmed that the challengers were young disciples from the Magus Tower. "Don't worry, Boss Mag. With me there, no one would be able to harm little Amy. Even if they could, they wouldn't dare harm my precious disciple." Crasso waved his hands in a confident manner. "That." Mag nodded. "I feel much more assured after hearing you say," nodded with a smile. He hesitated momentarily before asking, "Would I be able to spectate the match tomorrow? You say you're not worried, but you're still concerned after all. So be it. If you insist on coming, then you can come to watch little Amy pummel all of those little brats tomorrow." Crasso shook his head with a slightly resigned smile. "Thank you." Mag smiled in response. It was true that he was still concerned about Amy's safety, but his second objective was to see the people from the Magus Tower for himself. With Crasso's permission, he would be granted entry into Chaos School the next day. Following the conclusion of the dinner service, Sally and Yabimiya cleaned up the restaurant before departing. Mag closed the door of the restaurant, and prepared to tuck Amy and Ugly Duckling into bed. "Father, I still want another ice cream. Can I please have one?" Amy would normally be nodding off on the counter this late, but she was wide awake on this occasion, and she pouted her little lips with a pitiable expression as she looked at Mag. Meow. Ugly Duckling's eyes also lit up, and it extended its 2 little white paws toward Mag as if it would also like some ice cream. Mag felt as if his heart was about to melt at the sight of Amy's adorable face, and he almost caved in and nodded. However, he thought about it for a moment before shaking his head as he said, "It's already late, and you have to go to sleep soon. If you eat an ice cream now, you could get a tummy ache. But I really, really want an ice cream. I want a vanilla ice cream, just one. Please, Father." Amy slowly made her way toward him before latching onto his hand and looking up at him with a pleading expression in her bright blue eyes. Her little pointy ears drooped as if she would burst into tears if Mag were to refuse her. Meow. Ugly Duckling also laid its front paws on Mag's apron in a beseeching manner. Mag looked down at the 2 adorable little babies, and he simply couldn't bring himself to refuse them. He hesitated momentarily before asking internally, "System, if I give Amy an ice cream now, will it negatively impact her body?" According to the system's assessment, Amy's body is quite strong, so under normal circumstances, consuming ice cream won't cause any negative effects. However, she has already had 3 ice creams today, so the system advises against eating any more. Otherwise, it could be bad for her health. The system gave a prompt reply. "So that means she can have another one with no issues, right?" Mag asked. "Consumption of any food presents risks. According to incomplete statistical analysis, there are more than 1,000 people who die from eating fruit jelly per year, and many people per year also perish from drinking water. Hence, the system cannot guarantee her safety. The system gave a very serious reply. Going by that logic, you could die from being struck by a falling meteorite. Mag rolled his eyes internally. Thus, Mag patted Amy's little head in a doting manner, and conceded, "All right, but the two of you can only have one ice cream. You can have one ball each, and Amy gets the cone." "Yay! Thank you, father." Amy was overjoyed, and her pointy little ears wiggled in elation. Meow Ugly Duckling also chimed in with excitement. After tasting some ice cream the day before, it had also fallen in love with the delicious icy flavor. Thus, Mag made a one-ball vanilla ice cream cone for Amy, and placed the other ball on a plate. Amy and Ugly Duckling had a mini feast before going upstairs to be tucked into bed. After the two of them were sound asleep, Mag said internally, "System, upgrade the restaurant." A song began to play in Mag's mind. It was a system version remix, so it was tinged with an abundance of resentment. "System, I'm not buying anything ever again if you play music with that surround sound system of yours again." Mag furrowed his brows and expressed his displeasure toward the sound wave attacks being directed at him. "I'm just trying to express the excitement in my heart. Don't you humans also like to hum and sing when you're in a good mood? How can you rob the system of its freedom like this?" The system delivered a stern retort. "All right, then I'm not going to upgrade the restaurant." Mag pursed his lips. "You were right. Such a heinous method of expressing joy must be nipped in the bud." The background music immediately stopped, and in a fawning tone, the system said, "Let's discuss the restaurant upgrade now. You have enough points to upgrade the restaurant to level 2, after which you'll unlock many rights. At the same time, the restaurant will also undergo some renovation, so please confirm that you would like to go ahead with the upgrade." A restaurant upgrade contract suddenly appeared in Mag's mind, and he read through it carefully from start to finish. It was just an ordinary contract with no traps or anything like that, nor did it specify the rights that would be unlocked following the upgrade. Thus, he pressed the confirm button on the lower right corner with his mind. Ding! The restaurant upgrade has been successfully confirmed. Ding! 50,000 points have been successfully deducted. Ding! Restaurant is undergoing renovation, which will require 3 minutes. During this period of time, please do not go down to the first floor of the restaurant. System notifications rang out one after another, following which some sounds began to erupt downstairs. By the way, system, while you're doing that, can you transform that room on the second floor into a miniature children's playground? Mag asked internally. That room was empty anyway, so if he could transform it into a playground, then Amy and Ugly Duckling would be able to have a lot of fun. The upgrade package does not include this option. The system offered a stern rejection before continuing. Also, please remember that the system is a cuisine system, not a construction contractor. Please do not insult the system by asking it to build a children's playground, that is unacceptable. Just state your price. Mag rolled his eyes. He had heard similar words being spoken by the system countless times before. Well, as expected, the system immediately began to hesitate once money was mentioned. 1,000 gold coins, Mag offered. Deal, the system immediately replied. There's a good system. Mag pursed his lips before shaking his head as he said, you may agree to this price, but I don't, it's too expensive. We can negotiate on the price, and calculate production costs based on your requirements. The system's manufacturing quality is guaranteed to be of an extremely high standard, and every single copper coin that you pay will be well worth the price. The objective is to build a playground for the little princess in a limited space so she can have a fun and enjoyable childhood, the system urged. Show me the concept design first, Mag requested. 1,000 gold coins was 100,000 copper coins. Business was quite good for the restaurant at the moment, but that was still a large sum of money, and he couldn't afford to let it go to waste. Ding! The indoor playground concept designs have been transmitted. You may view it at any time. The system's voice immediately sounded. Mag looked at the concept designs that had appeared in his mind, only to find that the prices started at 500 gold coins before gradually increasing, all the way to 10,000 and even 1 million gold coins. Mag began to flip through the designs one by one. The 500 gold coin playground was quite similar to the indoor playground of the modern day. The place was decorated with a cartoon wallpaper, and within it was a trampoline, a seesaw, a wooden horse. The entire room was littered with all types of toys, and there were many options, but it reminded him of a low-level playground that one could purchase a daily ticket to access for 10 yuan. He continued to flip through the options, and the 1000 gold coin playground appeared to be a much more attractive option. There were many themes to choose from, such as Underwater World, Purple Dream Kingdom. Not only were these themes reflected by the wallpaper, the toys had also received an upgrade. There was a miniature two-person merry-go-round in the corner, a cartoon dance machine, an electronic wooden horse. The whole thing appeared to be very high-tech. This one's not bad. For a room of this size, a playground of this level should be the limit. If any larger toys are crammed in, there wouldn't be enough space. Mag was quite pleased with the concept design for the Purple Dream Kingdom. However, he was curious about the more expensive options, so he continued to flip through the catalogue, and his expression gradually became more and more peculiar. The 10,000 gold coin playground essentially had the scale of an outdoor playground, with all types of large playground facilities. As for the 1 million gold coin playground, it was pretty much the same scale as Disneyland. There were all types of themed sections, and it was clearly something that such a small room couldn't contain. Furthermore, according to the system's introduction, some of the sections had super high-tech features, such as ultra-realistic space simulation, galactic tour simulations, black hole simulations, magic battle simulations. Even Mag was getting tempted by those features. If I build a playground for 1 million gold coins, then sell tickets for entry, would I be able to earn money that way? Mag thought to himself as he looked at the concept design, but he quickly shook his head to rid himself of that thought. 1 million gold coins was a massive amount, and even if he were to sell tickets, he most likely wouldn't be able to break even after many years. Furthermore, there was no guarantee that kids would come to play. Most importantly, if he used 1 million gold coins to purchase strength points, he would most likely be close to returning to his peak. In comparison to building a playground, regaining his former strength was clearly far more important. Of course, if someone could invest in this project, then it wasn't a bad idea. In any case, it would be fine as long as he wasn't the one putting in the money. System, can you quote a lower price for this Purple Dream Kingdom? Mag asked internally. That one was clearly the most suitable design. The prices listed are already the cost price, and the system can ensure brilliant quality of all designs. These prices are already a massive bargain, so what are you waiting for? The system gave an earnest response. 500 gold coins, Mag immediately offered. A string of ellipses rolled through his mind, after which the system roared, "Who barters like that? Doesn't bartering always start at half price?" Mag asked. The system fell silent. "That's all the money I have. If you can do it, great, if not, I can just take them outside to play. The outside world is far more spectacular anyway." Mag stood up, and prepared to walk out of the room. The 3-minute renovation period was almost up, and he wanted to check what changes had been made. "Please wait. Can you maybe add a bit more to that price?" The system's voice sounded. "I can add 1 more copper coin to that price, that's my limit." Mag didn't even hesitate for a split second. "Deal," the system spat through gritted teeth. "Then go ahead." A faint smile appeared on Mag's face. 500 gold coins was not a small sum, but he would gladly spend that much to build a playground for Amy. Ding! 500 gold coins and 1 copper coin have been successfully deducted. Construction of the Purple Dream Kingdom will now commence. The construction will take 3 minutes. Ding! The restaurant's upgrade is complete. Congratulations, the restaurant has been upgraded to level 2. The upgrades comprise of the following: 1. Omniscient door ability to gather information on all beings coming into the restaurant, including but not limited to their bust, waist, and hip measurements, gender, power level, physical condition, etc. 2. The outdoor dining area will be set up with 16 seats available. 3. A super high-quality surround sound system has been installed, and you can purchase music from the system to be played, thereby enhancing the dining experience. 4. The restaurant's defense systems have been upgraded to level 4, allowing the restaurant to resist all physical and magical attacks at and below the 4th tier. Aside from hardware upgrades, a series of rights has also been unlocked as a result of the upgrade. These include: 1. All kitchenware purchasing rights have been unlocked, so you can purchase any kitchenware at the system's stipulated prices. 2. The right to experiment on dishes of your own choice has been unlocked. 3. The right to teach others to cook has been unlocked, but the number of trainees is restricted to an upper limit of 2 for now. The system's voice sounded. Kissmanga.in Mag paused for a long while to process all of the information that the system was throwing at him. Holy F***ck, you installed a sound system, but I have to buy CDs from you? What kind of shady arrangement is this? Mag immediately identified the most farcical point. Playing some soothing classical music could make the customers more relaxed, and contribute to the more enjoyable dining experience, but that clearly wasn't the extent of the system's intentions. This was like selling someone a rice cooker, but not giving them any rice. It was a completely shameless way of doing things. Please watch your words. Any piece of iconic music is a manifestation of its creator's blood, sweat, and tears. Countless time and effort have gone into each piece, and many musicians sacrificed their entire youth to create such brilliant compositions. Don't you feel obliged to acknowledge their efforts by purchasing the genuine versions of their music? The system urged. I do support purchasing genuine versions of music. Those people who claim that they love music but buy pirated versions of compositions are absolutely disgraceful. Mag put on a serious expression as he said, however, there are many websites that offer access to genuine versions of music for free monthly subscriptions. How much are you going to charge for a monthly subscription? The system will not be providing any free music, nor any monthly subscription service, the system replied. Also, this is an alternate world. How can you measure an iconic song's worth here according to prices on Earth? An iconic composition is priceless in this world. The system's voice was becoming quite vehement. Then how much do you plan on charging per song? Mag asked. At least 10 gold coins per song. The system's voice was a little uncertain. Didn't you say that they were priceless? Mag pursed his lips with a hint of disdain. Priceless is just an adjective to describe very high prices. There are many items that are known as priceless treasures, but once they're put up for sale, a price tag will inevitably be pinned onto them. Thus, the price for these priceless pieces is 10 gold coins per piece. The system provided an explanation. These are songs that you can download for $5, but you're selling them to me for 1,000 each. Do you think I'm stupid? Mag rolled his eyes, and as he went downstairs, he asked, setting aside the music thing for now, I'm more curious about what this omniscient door is. I can understand assessing someone's power level and physical condition, but why their 3 measurements and gender? Are there ladyboys in this world as well? Do not underestimate how sinister this world is. You could see a woman and think that she's quite beautiful, but she could pull something that's even bigger than yours out of her pants. Something like that is possible even in this world, and the omniscient door's gender identification feature can easily prevent that from happening. As for the 3 measurements, that's an extra reward. Of course, if you feel like they're unnecessary, the system can switch off those 2 features, the system replied. The system's words planted a mental image in Mag's mind, and a chill ran down his spine as he hurriedly waved his hands, and said, I don't know what this so-called reward is supposed to be, but there's no need to get rid of those 2 features. Just don't display everyone's 3 measurements under normal circumstances. All right, the system replied. Mag continued to make his way downstairs. According to what the system had told him, not only had there been some hardware upgrades, some rights had also been unlocked. From this day forth, he could experiment with dishes that weren't on the menu. However, the diversification of the restaurant's dishes was taking place at quite a fast rate, so he wasn't planning on making any new dishes anytime soon. What he was far more interested in was his new right to teach others how to cook. Yabimiya had always expressed her interest in cooking. She had never asked him to teach her, and had always tried to avoid looking while he was cooking, but she was very bad at hiding her actual thoughts. Perhaps I can teach Mia some simple dishes, like making ice cream and things like that. If she wants to learn the more complex dishes, I can slowly teach her those as well, Mag murmured to himself as he came downstairs, and flicked on the light switch. After the lights were switched on, he discovered that the restaurant didn't appear to have changed much. The sound system was hidden, so Mag wasn't sure what the sound quality and effect would be like. A metal frame had been added to the restaurant's door frame, and it appeared to be a decorative feature, but Mag knew that that was the so-called omniscient door. The effects of the door had yet to be assessed, but with the features that the system boasted, it should be able to give Mag some forewarning when powerful beings came into his restaurant, as well as present him with a better understanding of his customers. He then opened the restaurant door and walked outside, upon which his eyes immediately lit up. The patch of land in front of the restaurant was no longer vacant. There were 4 square tables and matching chairs positioned in an orderly formation, but those didn't appear to be wooden furniture like the ones in the restaurant. Instead, they were all metallic, with a light brown coating of paint that gave them a woody look. There was a small lamp with a black and white shell in each corner, and they were just bright enough to illuminate all 4 tables. Their light didn't cross over each other's, and produced a very warm and romantic atmosphere. Perfect. Mag nodded with a content expression. Please give a review for the restaurant upgrade. 5 stars is extremely satisfied, 4 stars is very satisfied, 3 stars is neutral, 2 stars is dissatisfied, and 1 star is very dissatisfied. The system's voice sounded. 1 star, very dissatisfied, Mag immediately replied. That's a malicious review. You just said that this was perfect, and you're clearly very happy with the upgrade. The system has video footage as evidence. The system's enraged voice sounded. That's right, it is indeed a malicious review. What are you going to do about it? Mag put on an infuriating smirk. What you have done is very unscrupulous, and I'm going to lower your credit rating, and decrease the cap on the loan you can take out. I'm also going to. The system was furious. You want me to amend the bad review, right? Mag continued to smirk. The system's words immediately faltered, and it hesitated momentarily before asking, I would, but would you be willing to change it? Give me 2 copper coins, and I'll adjust the review, Mag replied. That's not right. I only asked for 1 extra copper coin from you for the playground, but you're asking for 2 just to amend your negative review, the system grumbled. If I ask for just a single copper coin, then I wouldn't be making any profit. I have to at least earn back a copper coin. Mag pursed his lips with a hint of impatience as he urged, are you giving it to me or not? If not, I'm going to increase the price. Deal, the system spat through gritted teeth. Ding! 2 copper coins have been returned to your account. A content smile appeared on Mag's face upon hearing that, and he adjusted the negative review. He turned his attention back to the outdoor dining area, only to find that there were a few outdoor umbrellas situated off to the sides. Those could be used to keep out the sun, and were also useful during brief showers. After that, Mag returned to the restaurant, and prepared to go to bed. Right at that moment, the system's voice suddenly sounded. Ding! The restaurant has been successfully upgraded, and a review has been left, so an additional reward had been unlocked, 1 beef kebab recipe. 1 beer brewing recipe. Mag's footsteps faltered, and a surprised look appeared on his face as he asked, "What did you just say?" "Beef kebabs and beer." "That's right. Due to the fact that you were able to upgrade the restaurant to level 2 in just a month and a half, the system is rewarding you with the recipes for beef kebabs and brewing beer. Keep working hard, improve your cooking skills, and upgrade the restaurant as quickly as possible at the same time. There will be more rewards waiting for you down the track." The system's vehement voice sounded. "All right, I'll be sure to do so." Mag gave an offhand response, but his attention was already drawn to the 2 shiny golden experience bags in his mind. Kissmanga.in kebabs and beer was the ideal midnight feast combo, which he hadn't thought would be realized so soon. The beef kebab recipe has been rewarded, so the lamb kebab recipe can't be far away, right? That would be even more perfect when eaten with cold beer. An elated smile appeared on Mag's face. After going upstairs, Mag was wondering whether he should work on the kebab recipe or the beer brewing recipe, but then he heard Amy utter a painful groan as she lay in her little bed. Mag quickly switched on the light, and made his way over to Amy's bed. Her face was a little pale, and her brows were furrowed as she clamped her little hands over her stomach with a pained expression. "Amy, are you all right?" Mag hurriedly cradled Amy in his arms, only to find that her little body was slightly cold, which made him even more concerned. Something like this had never happened before. "Father, my stomach hurts." Amy forced her eyes open in a feeble manner before closing them again as she clutched her stomach. "It must be the ice cream. What do I do now? There are no hospitals around here." Mag instantly began to panic. At the same time, he was kicking himself for giving in and allowing Amy to have that ice cream before bed. That was not something that a good father would have done. His experience as a father had been quite a smooth one so far, but that was mainly because Amy had always been very good and obedient. However, he was still a noob father that had only been on the job for just over a month, so he was at a complete loss for what to do. Meow Ugly Duckling had also woken up, and it rubbed its head against Amy's little hand with a concerned look on its face. "I don't know where Sally lives." "Wait, I can go find Zixie." Mag's eyes lit up as he wrapped Amy in a blanket, and quickly carried her downstairs in his arms. Zixie's nature magic had super powerful healing abilities, so it should be just as effective as Sally's life magic. Furthermore, she was living in Urian's magic potion shop, which was very close to the restaurant. "Ms. Zixie! Ms. Zixie! Are you there?" Mag held Amy in one arm while knocking on the magic potion shop's door with his other arm. "Mag!" The door was opened, and Zixie emerged as she rubbed her bleary eyes with a perplexed expression on her face. The big and burly Lulu stood behind her, and he looked at Mag with his usual bashful smile. "Ms. Zixie, little Amy is suffering from a stomach ache. Can you use your magic to treat her? She seems to be in a lot of pain." Mag immediately gave an urgent explanation. "Come in." Zixie immediately snapped wide awake upon hearing that, and she turned her attention to Amy, who was wrapped in a tight blanket cocoon, before quickly striding into the magic potion shop. Lulu hurriedly followed behind her. "Place little Amy on the counter here. Did she eat something tonight?" Zixie pointed a finger, and the oil lamp in the corner lit up. A dim yellow light illuminated the magic potion shop as she turned to Mag. "She ate half an ice cream cone before going to bed tonight. I shouldn't have let her eat it. That must be why she's having a stomach ache." Mag gently placed Amy on the counter with a self-critical expression on his face. "Children's bodies aren't as strong as adults. You need to be more careful next time, Mag." Zixie adopted a serious expression as she placed her hand on Amy's forehead, then on her lower abdomen. After a short while, she heaved a sigh of relief, and said, "Don't worry, it's not a big issue. Stand back a little." Mag immediately backed away slightly, but his nervous gaze was still fixed on Amy. Zixi hovered her hand over Amy's lower abdomen, and her little body levitated up from the counter. A green light began to emanate from Zixi's hand, and a tiny green seedling sprouted from Amy's lower abdomen. The green light then fell like a shower, enveloping Amy's entire body. The green light was then absorbed by Amy, and her furrowed brows slowly relaxed. The pained expression on her face also eased as color returned to her cheeks, and her breathing became more even as if she had already fallen asleep. "All right, all she needs is some rest now." Zixi slowly put down her hand, and Amy's little body descended gently back onto the counter. "Thank you." Mag heaved a sigh of relief as he scooped up the sleeping Amy in his arms. "You're welcome. It's a little cold outside, so make sure the blanket is wrapped really tightly around her. Also, make sure not to feed her anything cold before bed from now on," Zixi cautioned. "Yes, I definitely won't do that again." Mag nodded in response. He had well and truly learned his lesson. Not only was he not going to feed Amy ice cream at night, he was going to strictly enforce a maximum quota of 2 ice creams a day. Mag carefully carried Amy to the restaurant's door, where he heard a rustling sound as if something were scratching at the door. He opened the door, and Ugly Duckling's raised front paws lost their support, upon which it tipped over and rolled outside. It was a little dizzy as it looked up at Mag and Amy before meowing in a concerned manner as it stood up. "Amy is fine now. You should go back to bed as well. Looks like your stomach is stronger than Amy's." Mag smiled as he picked up Ugly Duckling from the ground and walked into the restaurant. Ugly Duckling seemed to have understood what Mag was saying, and it immediately calmed down. It rubbed its little head against Amy's leg before quickly falling asleep. After tucking in Amy and Ugly Duckling, Mag sat beside her little bed for over an hour to ensure that she was in no further discomfort. After making sure of that, he brushed his teeth before going to bed himself. He was still concerned about Amy, so he decided not to go into the test field for the god of cookery. Everything would have to wait until the next day. The next morning, Mag woke up early as usual. Amy was still sound asleep in her little bed, and he planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. She had to be tired after the events that transpired the night before, so he decided to let her sleep in. It was more important for her to rest and recover than attend her lessons. In any case, Krasu wasn't really taking the Magus Towers challenge seriously. Mag was going to assess Amy's condition after she woke up to determine whether she would participate or not. If she still wasn't feeling great, then he definitely wouldn't allow her to battle anyone today. As expected, being a good father is not a simple task. "I still have much to learn." Mag heaved an internal sigh as he went downstairs to prepare ingredients. Time passed very quickly, and Mag went upstairs to check on Amy twice, but she was still sound asleep on both occasions. Even Ugly Duckling was having a sleep-in beside Amy. "Wow, when did Mamie Restaurant get these new tables and chairs? They're made from metal, but they look exactly like wooden furniture." Kissmanga.in. This is the first outdoor dining area in the Aiden Square. To be able to secure permission from the City Lord's castle is no easy feat. As expected, Boss Mag is no ordinary man. Indeed. I heard that a few days ago, the City Lord's castle reserved Mamie Restaurant to facilitate the conference between the dragons and the demons. That's only happened in the best restaurants in the Aiden Square before. The new tables and chairs outside the restaurant attracted a lot of attention from the customers that were lining up, and many of them went to have a seat just for the sake of it. No restaurant had ever set up tables and chairs in the square itself, so it was quite a new unique experience. "Boss Mag, can we dine at these tables outside? And would be able to order from here as well?" Sargeras led his burning legion, and looked at Mag with a bashful smile. "Of course you can. The tables and chairs were only set up last night, and are perfect for customers who exhibit strong reactions to the restaurant's food. With this outdoor dining area, you'll be able to dine in comfort, and not have to worry about harming other customers. Also, the tables and chairs aren't made from wood, so you won't have to worry about burning them, either. Mag nodded with a smile. Hehe, that's really thoughtful of you, Boss Mag. All of us can sit while we eat now. Mond wore a bashful smile on his face. The other members of the Burning Legion were also very pleased. They didn't find it bothersome to eat Rigiamo while standing in front of the restaurant, but if they could enjoy the delicious food while sitting down, then that was obviously much better. Boss, can you get me 2 extra Rigiamos today? I feel like if I eat another 7 Rigiamos, I'll be able to make a breakthrough. Calzac looked at Sargeras with an eager expression. No problem. Looks like you'll be the second one after Keel to reach the 3rd tier. The holy Rigiamos really are holy items to us lava demons. Sargeras nodded with an excited smile. If our entire village can have access to Rigiamo, then us lava demons will have hope for a resurgence. As such, let's keep working hard, everyone. Sargeras turned to the other demons, and raised a clenched fist into the air. For Rigiamo, the demons chanted in unison. Have they been brainwashed by Rigiamo? Looks like they're completely incorrigible. Mag found them to be quite amusing, but he was also very touched by their dedication toward Rigiamo. Urian. Gender, male, power level, 10th tier magic caster, physical condition, extremely old, with chronic rheumatism, ankylosing spondylitis, Argabi gender, female, power level, 1st tier knight, physical condition, 1 month pregnant. As customers walked into the door, the notification board in Mag's mind displayed one string of information after another. Mag had control over that notification board, and he could close it or move it into a corner at any time. In doing so, he would be able to focus on his work, and only look at it when he was interested. I didn't think that Urian's condition would be so bad. I hope the restaurant's food can help him feel better. Mag cast a sympathetic glance toward Urian. All of the ailments that he had been afflicted with were very tortuous ones, it was no wonder that he had a hunched back. Speaking of which, this omniscient door sure is awesome, it can even detect pregnancy. Mag took a glance at the female knight who was sitting down to make her order. It was quite likely the case that even she didn't know that she was already pregnant. At the gates of Chaos School, the Magus Tower and Advanced Imperial Academy horse-drawn carriages were approaching in a single-file formation. The glory of our Magus Tower hinges on this match, so defeat is not an option. Abbott stood in front of the school gates, facing the young boys standing before him with a serious expression. Yes. The young magic casters were filled with battle intent. Chaos School. Hank turned to look at the school with a disdainful smile as he said to himself, what a bunch of weak trash. The main hall of Chaos School was already filled with students. The students from the primary and secondary sections were seated below the stage in accordance with their age and class. All of the teachers were responsible for maintaining order among the students. The young magic casters of the Magus Tower were led by Hank, and were standing on the right side of the stage. All of them wore blue magician robes with miniature golden Magus Towers emblazoned on their chests. Their expressions were quite haughty and arrogant as they looked down at the Chaos School students below. The students from the Advanced Imperial Academy wore blue and white school uniforms, and stood behind the Magus Tower magic casters, also with haughty expressions on their faces. Meanwhile, the Chaos School students wore white magician robes with the Chaos School emblem emblazoned on the front. The students that were going to battle the Advanced Imperial Academy students all wore normal school uniforms to set them apart. Below the stage, the kids from the elementary section were all very excited. They looked up at the stage with eager eyes, and discussed spiritedly among themselves. Apparently, their upperclassmen were going to battle magic casters from the distant Roth Empire, which was an event that only took place once per year. The students from the secondary section were older, but they were just as animated. The feud that Chaos School had with the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy had been raging for over 2 decades, and matches were held almost every year. As such, To them, it wasn't just a fun event to watch. In their hearts, the glory of Chaos School hinged on this match. Chaos School's record during the past matches was very lackluster. They had lost for 4 consecutive years, and had been defeated not only by the Magus Tower, but often by the Advanced Imperial Academy as well. As such, the match today was of extreme importance. If they lost again, then that would make for 5 consecutive losses, a disgrace that Chaos School had never suffered throughout its history. Even the teachers had told them that if they were to suffer 5 consecutive losses, the Magus Tower and Advanced Imperial Academy might not even bother to return to challenge them next year. In that case, Chaos School would even lose its chance to prove itself. Thus, the match this year was a must-win one for Chaos School. However, when everyone thought about the Chaos School's participants this year, they couldn't help but feel a little depressed. There were a few upperclassmen that were third-tier magic casters, but there was always at least one fourth-tier magic caster among the Magus Tower's ranks. Just a single rank was the difference between an elementary magic caster and an intermediate one, and almost no one could overcome that hurdle. The higher UPS and teachers of Chaos School sat in the front row, with Novan sitting at the very center. Abbott sat on his left, while an official from the Roth Empire sat beside Abbott. In contrast, Krasua didn't choose to sit in the front row. Instead, he was sitting in the corner in the second row, and was looking around as if he were searching for someone. Arthur, who was sitting behind him, asked, "Master, are you worried that Amy won't get here in time? Do you need me to check on her?" "I'm not worried about that. It's just that I haven't had breakfast yet, and I'm a little hungry, so I'm wondering when Mag will bring me some food." Krasua rubbed his stomach and waved his hand nonchalantly as he said, "As for little Amy, the main characters of stories always take the stage last. Back in the Roth Empire's Magic Casters tournament, I intentionally flexed by stalling until the last moment. After Urian beat everyone else and was about to claim the trophy, I appeared and defeated him with ease, claiming the title for myself. That feat remains a legend to this very day. But I heard that no decisive result was reached in that final battle." Arthur's brows furrowed with skepticism. "So what? In any case, all of the magic casters in the Roth Empire remembered my name from that day forth. The championship title wasn't actually all that important. The key was that I proved to everyone that they were all trash, not even worthy to fight me." Krasua shrugged with a nonchalant smile. "Of course. Master is the most powerful melee magic caster on the entire continent." Arthur wore an expression of awe and veneration on his face. "If I could get rid of the melee part of that title, then my life would be complete, but it appears I won't be able to do that. If Amy can do it, I'll be ecstatic." Krasua chuckled to himself. Aside from him and Urian, there were still many powerful magic casters on the Norland continent. There was the Elven Queen who hadn't fought in over a decade, the old dragon residing underground beneath the Dragon Island, the old witch in the Boundless Sea Realm, the old fart in the Roth Imperial Place. Even Irina was probably someone to be mentioned in the same breath as those people. Krasua didn't know exactly how powerful she was at present, but with the assistance of the Tree of Life, he could only assume that she was no weaker than all the aforementioned old farts. "Master Krasua, I'd like to congratulate you on behalf of the Magus Tower for accepting a disciple. May I ask where she might be? I would love to meet the supreme prodigy that was lucky enough to catch the eye of the mighty Lord of Fire." The match hadn't begun yet, so Abbott made his way over to Krasua with a respectful smile. At the same time, he was scanning the crowd for a half-elf girl, but failed to find any. "Abbott, I didn't think you'd be the one coming here with all these little brats. Amy is not the lucky one, I'm the very fortunate one to have a prodigy like her as my disciple." Krasua turned to Abbott with an indifferent expression, and said with a hint of mockery, "You can stop looking now, my disciple hasn't turned up yet. Those old farts sent those little brats here to challenge my disciple, right? They want to embarrass me for abandoning the Magus Tower and coming to Chaos City, right?" Abbott's smile stiffened on his face, he was feeling a little awkward. As expected of an old hermit who had lived for over a century, he was able to see through all of the lies and pretenses. However, he was a representative of the Magus Tower, so he could only force a smile onto his face as he said, "Everyone from the Magus Tower is overjoyed to hear that Master Krasu found a new disciple. We all know that someone acknowledged by Master Krasu must be a brilliant prodigy, so we sent our young members here to spar with her, hoping that they would learn something in the process." "So you've sent a bunch of brats who have studied magic for over a decade to spar with a 4-year-old girl who has only been studying magic for a month. Did I hear something wrong, or are those old bastards already this shameless?" Krasu raised an eyebrow as he turned to Abbott. Abbott was a little embarrassed, and didn't know what to say. "So be it. I accept the challenge. Little Amy will fight, and I'm sure those little brats will learn a lot in the process." A smile appeared on Krasu's face as he turned away from the embarrassed Abbott. "I hope so." Abbott aimed a meaningful look at Krasu, trying to figure out what he was thinking, but to no avail. Nonetheless, he still put on a smile, and said, "The Magus Tower is still the most powerful force among magic casters, isn't that right, Master Krasu?" "Really? I've never thought that. Your ego has become very inflated, Abbott." Krasu shook his head in response. "But Master Krasu, you were the one who created the Magus Tower all those years ago. Back in the tournament, you and Master Urian shared the championship title, and he left Rhoda while you stayed to found the Magus Tower. Only after several decades of development has the Magus Tower become what it currently is. Is it not the most powerful force in your eyes?" Abbott looked at Krasu with a hint of puzzlement and vehemence in his eyes. "This is no longer the Magus Tower that it once was. It has developed into something that I do not like. It would be like you having a child with your wife, only for the child to look more and more like your neighbor as he grows up. Would you still think that he's your child then? So don't ever say that to me again. The current Magus Tower has nothing to do with me. I may be old now, but I still know shame." Krasu turned to Abbott with a very serious expression. Abbott opened his mouth to say something, but he only nodded and left a parting sentence before leaving. "I hope to witness a brilliant performance from your disciple. He was quite a pure and innocent kid when he first joined the Magus Tower. He doesn't have a lot of talent, but he's not actually a bad person." Krasu shook his head with a slightly wistful expression. "Where's Amy? Isn't Amy battling the magic casters from the Magus Tower today?" Daphne sat on the edge of her seat, and scanned through the crowd repeatedly with her eyes, but was disappointed to find that Amy was still absent. "I feel like she probably doesn't have the right to participate in the match. After all of the participants are our upperclassmen from the secondary section. They're all very powerful, while she's only been learning magic for a month, so how can she represent Chaos School?" Ignatsu was also searching through the crowd. "That's not true. Amy is super awesome. If she participates in the match, then she'll be sure to strike everyone down." Daphne was very confident in Amy's abilities. "Speaking of which, that Palmer guy is really impressive too. He's representing our school in the arithmetics competition. I feel like Amy would be a better candidate for that competition, though," Ignatsu continued. "Is little Amy competing in anything today? Why haven't I seen her yet?" Luna finally managed to get all of the kids in her class to settle down, but she was also quite curious. Amy wasn't on the stage, nor was she next to Krasu, so where could she be? On the stage, the young Magus Tower magic casters were also sizing up their opponents with a haughty look in their eyes. "Is Master Krasu's disciple on the stage? I heard she's a half-elf girl, but no one seems to fit that description." George was rather perplexed as he looked around. "That little brat must be too scared to turn up. She's just a half-elf piece of trash that doesn't even dare to face our Magus Tower. She's nothing but a joke." Hank pursed his lips, and looked at the rest of Chaos School's students with a disdainful expression as he said, "Just like these idiots here. If even a crappy school like this can produce good magic casters, then what's the point of our Magus Tower existing? Hank made no attempt to speak quietly, so everyone heard his insults. All of the students immediately began to glower up at Hank, and if it weren't for the fact that the principal and teachers were sitting beneath the stage, they would definitely challenge the cocky bastard to a battle. Thus, the situation instantly became very tense, and it felt as if the slightest catalyst could send everything spiraling out of control. Go, Chaos School! Chaos School is unbeatable! The confrontation on the stage sparked all of the students below the stage into action. Someone led the way with a chant, following which countless voices joined in, threatening to blow the roof off the hall. We have to win this time. We must fight for the glory of Chaos School. Klaus clenched his fists, and waved his arm through the air. He was the most powerful representative of Chaos School, as well as the team leader who was close to becoming a fourth-tier magic caster. As such, he was feeling a lot of pressure on his shoulders. For the glory of Chaos School! All of the Chaos School students roared in unison, and the doubts in their hearts had been completely erased. They listened to the ear-splitting chants ringing out within the hall, and they could feel adrenaline pumping through their veins. All of them only had one thought in their minds, and that was to stomp these obnoxious bastards into the ground. The home court advantage was on full display. In contrast, the Magus Tower magic casters were under a lot of pressure. The eldest among them was Hank at 16 years old, while the youngest was George, who was only 12 years old, and most of them were feeling quite flustered as it was their first time facing such a situation. Don't worry, they may be loud now, but we'll let our magic do the talking. If screaming like idiots can win battles, then what's the point in becoming more powerful? Hank smiled coldly as he turned to Klaus, and emulated a throat-slitting motion with his right thumb. With the words of reassurance from Hank, the Magus Tower magic casters gradually calmed down. Hank was the most powerful contestant as a fourth-tier magic caster, so the victory was in the bag for them. Youthful exuberance and a unified heart are far more important than the result of this match. A smile appeared on Novan's face as he heard the chants erupting within the hall. He turned to the school administrator beside him, and said, "Let's begin." Grinton nodded before announcing, "Please be quiet, everyone. I hereby announce the official commencement of the match between Chaos School and the Magus Tower. The match between the Advanced Imperial Academy and Chaos School will also be taking place at the same time in another venue." A voice amplification device ensured that his voice was heard by everyone, and it also created a surround sound effect. The hall gradually fell silent, and the students from the Advanced Imperial Academy all made their way down from the stage before being guided by their teachers to different contest venues. Thus, only the teachers and students of Chaos School as well as the young magic casters from the Magus Tower remained on the stage. Both sides were wearing magician robes, one side in white and the other in blue, as they faced off against each other. Grinton announced, "Next, I'll be specifying the rules of the match." In the past, the match UPS were decided by picking lots, but this time, contestants will be able to engage in battle voluntarily, with the loser being eliminated, while the victor continues to take on other challenges. Alternatively, the victor can also choose to take a rest, but can be swapped back on later. This arrangement will continue until one team has been completely defeated. But don't we still have another team member? The Chaos School students were rather perplexed. They only had 14 members, while the Magus Tower had 15. In that case, we will only need 2 people to eliminate all of you. Hank stepped forward with a haughty expression on his face. "I slept so well last night. Father, are the customers still not here yet?" Amy came downstairs with Ugly Duckling in her arms, and approached Mag with a curious expression. She was still wearing her adorable little bear pajamas and a pair of little butterfly slippers on her feet. Sally and Yabimiya were chatting in the restaurant, and there were no customers to be seen. "Nope. You woke up a little late today, so all of the customers have already finished their meals and left." Mag turned to look at Amy with a smile. He was quite relieved to see that her complexion was back to its normal healthy state. Hey! Amy's mouth gaped open in surprise upon hearing that, and she said urgently, "But Master Crasso wants me to beat up some bad people today? Will they run away if I turn up too late?" "Don't worry, they won't run away. I made some tofu pudding and yangzhou fried rice for you this morning. Have that first and let's go to school together after you finish." Mag brought over a yangzhou fried rice and a tofu pudding with a smile on his face. "That smells so good. I have to eat so I have enough energy to beat up the bad people." Amy's eyes instantly lit up, and she skipped over to the table with Ugly Duckling in her arms. Her pointy little ears were trembling slightly to show her elation, and even Ugly Duckling appeared to be in high spirits. Hank's words were met a brief silence before everyone erupted into a frenzied uproar. "What an arrogant bastard! He's completely looking down on our chaos school. We have to teach him a good lesson." All of the students below the stage erupted as if they wanted nothing more than to battle him themselves. The chaos school students on the stage also wore angry expressions. The match hadn't even begun yet, but the first shot had already been fired. Even the teachers from chaos school were quite enraged. Their school had lost for 4 consecutive years, and they were now being insulted by this uncouth young man. If it weren't for the fact that the principal hadn't said anything, all of them would have surrounded Abbott and asked for an explanation from him. "Principal Novan, Hank is quite a proud boy, I hope you won't mind," Abbott said apologetically tone, but there was also a hint of arrogance on his face. "He's indeed an interesting boy." Novan merely smiled in response without displaying any signs of displeasure. Silence. Grinton took a glance at Novan, and forced himself to suppress his rage. As the chatter in the venue slowly died down, he adopted a serious expression, and said, "The match will now commence. The battles will be held on the main stage, and Vice Principal Karpaz will act as the referee. You must remember at all times that safety is your #1 priority, and securing victory is just a secondary goal. Harming your opponents with malicious intent is strictly prohibited, and severe consequences await those who do so." C.C. Grinton scanned his gaze across the Magus Tower magic casters, and his eyes rested on Hank for a moment with a menacing expression. Hank pursed his lips and put on a nonchalant expression, but cold sweat was beading on his forehead. The fatso didn't appear to be a very powerful man, but for some reason, he was feeling quite unsettled under his scrutiny, just as if a poisonous viper had fixed its gaze on him. An elderly magic caster with a head of white hair slowly made his way onto the stage. He was quite tall and thin, with a long and heavily wrinkled face. He wore a serious expression, and as he raised his hand, pillars of light erupted from the stage. There was originally nothing at the center of the stage, but a golden circular platform soon rose up. The platform appeared to have a radius of roughly 10 meters, and a dome of light settled over it. Golden light washed over the transparent dome of light, creating a marvelous spectacle. "Wow!" The elementary section students let loose a collective gasp of amazement. Most of them hadn't come into contact with magic yet, and some of them didn't even know what magic was. As such, they were all entranced by the spectacular display that had been put on, and were very much looking forward to the upcoming battles. A 9th-tier magic caster. Hank looked at that white-haired magic caster with a hint of awe and veneration in his eyes. He could sense how powerful that magic caster was from the magic waves just then. As such, he could determine that this old man was comparable in power to his master. If he was only the vice principal, then was the principal a 10th-tier magic caster? The rules for the match today are very simple: fight until the very end. The first side to eliminate all of the opponents will secure victory. As for the arrangements of the battles during the match, that will be solely for the team leaders to decide. This is not just a battle of power, but also a battle of strategy. Vice Principal Karpaz looked at everyone with a serious expression as he said, "However, there are a few important points I have to reiterate here. 1. Do not take the battles too far. Harming your opponent with malicious intent is strictly prohibited, and our panel of referees will step in should such a situation arise. 2. disposable magic items are strictly prohibited, regardless of whether they're used for attack or defense. Anyone who uses any such item will be immediately disqualified. There were 2 other Chaos School teachers standing on either side of the platform, clearly on standby to step in should any mishaps occur. Yes. Both sides stood on either side of the platform, and glowered at their opponents with fighting intent raging in their eyes. Karpaz nodded before extending his hand as he said, "Now then, team leaders, please send out the contestants for the first battle. George, you take care of the first 7 matches, I'll wrap up the last 8. Hank patted George on the shoulder with a cold smile on his face as he said, "Show them the horror of opposing our Magus Tower." "All right." George nodded and stepped onto the platform. The other young magic casters from the Magus Tower were a little indignant to be left out, but none of them said anything in the end. Klaus turned to a burly teammate, and said, "You go first, Neil. George is a 3rd-tier wind magic caster, so your earth magic will be very effective against him. Even if you can't win, make him expend as much energy as you can so the rest of us can eliminate him." A bashful smile appeared on Neil's face as he said, "Don't worry, team leader. That little guy's wind magic won't be able to break through my guardian armor. I'll throw him out like a dog." Neil was about 1.8 meters tall, while George was only around 1.5 meters in height. Their confrontation was like a battle between a gorilla and a kitten. "You should go back to kindergarten, little guy, this is not a place for you." Neil cracked his knuckles, and the defined muscles on his arms bulged amid a series of cracks and pops. "Magus Tower, George Goodyear." George merely introduced himself to Neil in response. "Neil Barkley." Neil twisted his neck from side to side, and glared at George with a cold expression. "That's upperclassman Neil, a 3rd-tier earth magic caster. I heard that in the last magic caster trials, even upperclassman Klaus was unable to break through his Earth Guardian armor. There's such a massive difference in stature, I feel like that little guy will be sent flying as soon as he raises his hand. Magic is not a competition of muscle mass, that's something that only matters among knights. Among magic casters, spiritual power is of the utmost importance. Only with sufficiently powerful spiritual power can magic casters unleash powerful magic." The students below the stage all began to discuss spiritedly among themselves. At the same time, the kids of the elementary section were cheering at the top of their lungs. "Our upperclassmen will win for sure, right?" Daphne clenched his little fists with excitement. "Not necessarily. I heard from Father that the Magus Tower has gathered the most powerful magic casters on the entire Norland continent." Ignatzu shook his head. He was clearly a bit more pessimistic about Chaos School's chances. If only Amy were here. She would definitely beat these guys with ease. Daphne pursed her lips with a wistful expression as she began to search the crowd for Amy again. "The contestants are ready, so let the battle begin," Karpaz announced. "Hee, I'm going to." A smirk appeared on Neil's face, and he was just about to say something. True meaning of wind, wild wind blade flurry. George wasn't interested in hearing what Neil had to say. He raised his hands high into the air, and 5 crescent moon wind blades shot forth, each of which was around half a meter in length. They flew through the air side by side, creating a long line. "So fast." Neil's expression changed slightly, and even though he still appeared to be quite relaxed, he didn't dare to delay any longer. He abruptly pressed his hand against the ground, and yelled, "Earth Guardian armor!" A suit of brown rocky armor crept up along his legs and soon encompassed his entire body. His burly figure appeared even more imposing after donning the thick rocky armor, and there were spiky rock gloves on both of his hands. His head had also been concealed under a rocky helm, revealing only his eyes. He had transformed into a rock golem. "Come!" Neil roared as he unleashed a powerful punch. Crack! The first wind blade was dispelled by his fist, followed by the second, and only 2 faint marks were left on his rocky gloves. The remaining 3 wind blades suddenly changed direction, evading Neil's fists, and striking his chest and neck instead. 3 muffled thumps erupted in quick succession, and Neil's burly armored figure was forced back 3 steps. Shards of rock flew through the air, revealing 3 light indentations, but the wind blades were still unable to break through his armor. That's not going to be enough. Neil slammed a fist into his own chest, upon which the indentations in his armor recovered at a rate that was perceptible to the naked eye, returning to its former condition almost instantaneously. As long as his feet were in contact with the ground, he could relentlessly draw upon the power of the earth to repair his armor an unlimited number of times. So powerful! A burst of cheers erupted, and Neil's teammates were also quite elated to see this. If George couldn't break through Neil's Earth Guardian armor, then there was a very good chance that the latter would be able to secure victory. If he could get close to George and engage him in battle at close quarters, there was no way the frail young boy would be able to resist. All right, if that's not enough, then I'll just have to step it up a notch. George's brows furrowed at the sight of the smug Neil, and a serious expression appeared on his face. He extended his right hand before abruptly clenching it into a tight fist as he chanted, "Heed my call, elements of wind. Gale pillar, descend." What's he doing this time? Neil looked at George with a hint of confusion on his face. However, the doubts in his heart didn't stop him from charging toward George in preparation to end this battle. Boom! Right at that moment, a tornado with a diameter of around a meter fell from the sky, descending roughly 2 meters in front of Neil. It then swept toward Neil violently, sending a flurry of violent wind pillars and green wind blades flying into his armor. Cracks instantly began to appear on the ground as dust and debris flew in all directions. That's the ultimate spell, the Gale Pillar. Look out, Neil! Klaus let loose a cry of surprise as he looked at the wind pillar and its origin, the young caster with an incredulous expression. Aside from the tier ranking system, there was another hierarchy among magic casters. First to third tier magic casters were elementary magic casters, 4th to 6th tiers were intermediate magic casters, 7th to 9th tiers were advanced magic casters, and 10th tier magic casters were great magic casters. This hierarchy existed due to the spells that magic casters of each rank could use. Spells were divided into elementary spells, intermediate spells, advanced spells, ultimate spells, forbidden spells, and great forbidden spells. Most magic casters were only able to unleash spells that corresponded to their power levels, but there were some exceptionally talented magic casters that could unleash spells of a higher level. Those magic casters were virtually invincible among magic casters of the same rank, and were super prodigies. The Gale Pillar that George had just summoned was an intermediate spell, while George was only a third-tier magic caster. He's quite a bright youngster with prospects. Novan was slightly surprised as he looked at George. Looks like Chaos School is going to lose again. Many teachers heaved sighs internally, and their expressions became quite dejected. That's just a wind pillar, watch me smash it with my fist. Giant arm. Neil wasn't fearful in the slightest as he stepped forward. His right arm instantly expanded to more than twice its original size, and his armored hand came crashing toward the wind pillar. Everyone looked on with rapt focus at the scenes transpiring on the platform. The elementary section students had their eyes wide open with their little hands half raised into the air, preparing to burst into raucous cheers as soon as upperclassman Neil crushed the wind pillar and smashed his opponent off the platform. The massive rocky fist struck the wind pillar, upon which a muffled thump erupted. However, the wind pillar didn't dissipate as a result. Instead, it enveloped Neil's body, quickly stripping him of his rocky armor. The gale force winds were even beginning to sweep him off his feet, which would result in a disastrous situation for him. As soon as his feet lost contact with the ground, he would lose his ability to draw upon the power of the earth. As such, he wouldn't be able to repair his armor, and the battle would be as good as over. A hint of panic finally appeared on Neil's face, and he struggled as he attempted to unleash a spell. Rise! George raised his hand in a calm manner, and the pillar of wind quickly began to rotate. Neil's burly body was swept into the air like a kite with a snapped line before being thrown off the platform. He landed with a dull thump, and it took him a while to regain his bearings. Everyone fell completely silent upon seeing that. They were all staring at Neil and George with incredulous looks on their faces. "You're the one that shouldn't be here." George looked at Neil with a hint of mockery on his face. "You!" Rage flared up in Neil's heart, further compounding his dizziness, and causing him to black out on the spot. "Father, does this set of magician robes really look good on me?" At the restaurant's entrance, Amy was dressed in a set of black magician robes, and she looked up at Mag with a serious expression. "Yes, little Amy looks super gorgeous in those magician robes. We have to go now. Otherwise, the bad people really will run away soon." Mag nodded with a resigned expression. Amy had been deciding between two sets of magician robes for close to half an hour. As expected, women always took a long time to get ready. Even a little girl like Amy was no different. "All right. Let's go beat up those bad people." Amy's eyes lit up upon hearing that, and she clambered onto the bike as she waved the wand in her hand. "He's so powerful! What powerful wind magic!" The audience was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes widened at the sight of Neil being hurled off the platform by that pillar of wind. There was such a massive disparity in stature between the two of them, but the result of their battle was very unexpected. It seemed like the battle had only just begun, yet Neil had already been eliminated by an opponent who appeared to only be around 11 or 12 years old. If he were attending Chaos School, he would still be a part of the elementary section. "That's true magic." Hank turned to the Chaos School students with a hint of ridicule on his face before joining the Magus Tower magic casters in their raucous cheers. The first victory goes to the Magus Tower. Neil Barkley has been eliminated. Let's begin the second battle. Team leaders, please select your contestants. Karpus turned to the Chaos School students with an encouraging expression. "You're up next, Liant." Klaus cast a wary glance at George. He could also unleash an intermediate spell, but it would be very forced, and he couldn't do it with anywhere near the ease with which George had unleashed that spell. As such, he didn't know if he would be able to defeat George in battle. "All right." A tall and thin student emerged, and he walked toward the platform with an extremely wary expression. George turned to Karpus, and informed, "I'll keep going." "Second battle, begin." Karpus announced with a nod. This was a battle between two wind magic casters, and the disparity in power was quite apparent. George didn't even need to unleash his Gale Pillar before he was able to force eliminate Liant with ease. In the end, a teacher from Chaos School had to step in to shield him from two wind blades. Otherwise, he would have been in a lot of danger. Second battle, Magus Tower wins. Third battle, Magus Tower wins. Seventh battle, Magus Tower wins. Karpa's indifferent voice sounded once again, and an oppressive silence settled over the venue. Everyone looked up at the golden-haired young boy standing on the platform with indignation in their eyes, but also with a hint of awe and veneration. In the 7 matches, only the last student from Chaos School posed a small threat to George. Everyone else was eliminated by him with ease, and his overwhelming might struck everyone with a hint of despair. "Thank you." George nodded at Karpus as he got down from the platform. In the process, he looked at the Chaos School students below the stage, and shook his head with a bored expression. "Well done, George. Leave the rest to me." Hank patted George on the shoulder before getting onto the platform. A mocking sneer appeared on his face as he pointed to Klaus, and said, "You're the team leader, right? Beating you one by one would be too boring. I'll give you a chance, split your remaining 8 members into 2 groups, and I'll fight you in groups of 4. If you beat me, then you win the match, but if you lose, then the Magus Tower will probably never come back to your school. Fighting someone who can't even pose a good challenge is too boring. You." Klaus stepped forward and glowered at Hank. He was being insulted in front of the entire school, but they had lost 7 consecutive battles, so he didn't know how to respond. The disparity in power between the two sides struck him with despair, and he had no choice but to turn to the teachers below the stage for help. The other students of Chaos School were also furious. However, none of them could do anything, either. George had already beaten many of the best magic casters among their ranks, and it appeared that Hank was supposed to be even more powerful. They stood absolutely no chance here. That green-haired guy is going to fight 4 people at once. The students below the platform were all shocked and enraged upon hearing that. Not only was Hank insulting his opponents, he was even insulting the entire Chaos School. The most infuriating part was that no one could do anything about it. Abbott, I don't think that's allowed under the current rules. Grinton turned to Abbott with a dark expression. They were mentally prepared for Chaos School to be defeated by the Magus Tower, but in the past few years, the matches had always been quite close. Even though Chaos School had lost in all of them, the losses they suffered weren't too heavy. However, in this edition, the rule of deciding match UPS through drawing lots had been abolished, thereby leading to a situation where the entire Chaos School team was in danger of being swept by 2 people. If they sent out 4 people and were still defeated by Hank, then the entire school's reputation would be severely dented. Many teachers in the front row had also turned to Abbott with dark expressions. The entire match had spiraled out of control, and only Principal Novan would be able to bring the situation back under control. I say we let the kids decide on their own. They're currently in a negotiation phase, and no one is forcing anyone to do anything. If you don't like it, then you're free to stop them and enforce your own rules upon them. As long as those rules are fair, I have no objections. Abbott turned to Grinton with a smile. Let the kids decide. Some experiences are more important than winning or losing. Novan appraised the students on the platform with a calm smile as he said, there's no need to interfere excessively. Besides, we haven't lost yet, have we? Yes. Grinton wanted to offer an objection, but he only nodded in the end. The other teachers were a little surprised, but none of them said anything, either. Abbott took a glance at Novan, and he also chose to remain silent. Novan was a spatial magic caster that was feared by many great magic casters in the Magus Tower, and Abbott couldn't figure out what he was thinking. Thus, Klaus received no assistance from the teachers, and Karpaz wasn't stepping in, either. He took a deep breath to calm himself down, and at the same time, his mind scrambled for a way to win this match. The honor of Chaos School hinged on the result of this match, and as the team leader, he couldn't afford to let his emotions get the better of him. Klaus looked at his teammates before turning to Hank with a nod as he said, I accept your proposal, but we only have 7 people left, so they'll be split up into a group of 3 and a group of 4. You only have 14 people in total. Hank raised an eyebrow upon hearing that. Sure enough, there were only 7 people left, and Krasso's disciple hadn't appeared yet. She was most likely too scared to turn up. With that in mind, the mocking sneer on his face widened as he asked, I'm fine with that, but wouldn't it be too unfair to you guys? Clemente, Constance, you two come with me. Klaus ignored Hank's insults, and called out 2 names. Yes. 2 young men stepped forward to join Klaus as they walked onto the platform. Regardless of whether they won or lost the battle, it would not be a glamorous result for them. The audience was completely silent as they looked on with nervous expressions. The 3 most powerful students of Chaos School were on the stage, but everyone was still feeling quite concerned. We have to win this battle. Klaus clenched his fists with a determined expression. The other 2 young men nodded in unison with grave looks on their faces. In contrast, Hank was very relaxed, and was not intimidated in the slightest by his 3 opponents. Looks like my disciple will have to clean up this mess for Novan, but where is she? Has she overslept? Why isn't she here yet? I'm absolutely starving as well. Krasso began to look around, and a nervous expression appeared on his face for the first time. Go, Chaos School! Daphne clenched her little fists and cheered her side on despite her nervous expression. Ignatzu shook his head with a wistful expression as he murmured to himself, "That's a wood magic caster with ultra-powerful magic control. He can take care of all three opponents with no issues whatsoever. Let the 8th battle begin," Karpaz announced. "Go." Klaus raised a hand and began to chant a spell. 3 icy spikes each about a foot in length flew toward Hank in a straight line formation. Clemente raised his hand to unleash a fireball, which split into 3 in midair before hurtling toward Hank from 3 different directions. "Water particles hidden in the air, heed my call, grant me the power of the water god." Constance sat on the ground, and began to chant a spell. Water vapor began to converge around him. He appeared to be preparing a powerful spell. "Is this a joke?" Hank chuckled at the sight of the oncoming ice spikes and fireballs, and he raised his hand nonchalantly in response. Green light shimmered in front of him, quickly forming a shield constructed from vines. The 3 ice spikes and fireballs struck the shield in quick succession, upon which a green light erupted from the seemingly vulnerable shield. The ice spikes shattered and the fireballs exploded, but they weren't even able to break so much as a single vine. "He's an intermediate magic caster, so we have to attack him with all our power." Klaus' expression became extremely grave upon seeing that. A simple vine shield was enough for Hank to nullify all of their attacks with ease. Just as the information that they had previously gathered suggested, even the 3 of them didn't have much of a chance against Hank. "In my name, I summon a snowball spell." Klaus waved his black wand, and snow and ice began to materialize above Hank as if something was about to descend. Consecutive fireball spell. Clement stabbed his wand forward, and 5 fireballs shot forth in a straight line. "Let my summoned ocean wave deal the final blow." Constance suddenly raised his voice, and also pointed his wand directly at Hank. A blue wave that was 3 meters tall and 3 meters wide appeared out of thin air, following closely behind the string of fireballs as they hurtled toward Hank. "Snowball, descend!" Clement let loose a loud cry at the same time, and the snow and ice above Hank descended violently, forming a basketball-sized snowball that crashed down toward Hank like a meteorite. Those are 2 intermediate spells and another spell that's at the pinnacle of elementary spells. Surely that's enough to secure victory. All of the Chaos School students looked on with wide eyes. With the combined powers of their school's 3 most powerful magic casters, they stood a chance even against a 4th-tier magic caster. The students below the stage all looked on with anticipation and anxiety in their eyes. The green-haired boy was far too obnoxious, and all of them wanted to see him beaten to a pulp. Even the teachers were getting very nervous. This battle would decide the result of the match. If even these 3 couldn't win, then the remaining 4 weaker members stood no chance. That's more like it. Hank was not fearful in the slightest at the sight of the 3 oncoming spells. Instead, his eyes lit up with a hint of excitement as he twirled his wand above his head. As a result, the green vine shield in front of him suddenly transformed into a ball that enveloped his entire body. The fireballs exploded upon the ball, sending countless sparks flying through the air. Immediately afterward, the snowball descended, smashing a deep indentation into the wooden ball. This was followed by the massive wave, which almost flattened the wooden ball. In the face of the 3 powerful spells, Hank's spell appeared to be hanging on by a thread as if it would crumble at any moment. However, the fireballs exploded, the snowball shattered, and the wave was reduced to puddles on the ground, but the wooden ball still stood resolutely in the center of the platform. Hank was standing within the wooden ball, and he was completely unscathed. In fact, not even a single drop of water had made contact with his body. Klaus' trio panted heavily as they looked on, and all 3 of them were cast into despair. They couldn't even break through their opponent's defenses with their most powerful attacks, so the battle was as good as over. He's completely unscathed. The students below the stage were all very disappointed to see that. They had pinned all their hopes on that combination attack, but it had amounted to nothing. "If you're done, then it's my turn." Hank raised a hand to withdraw the wooden ball around him, and green light began to shimmer from his black wand. He pointed the wand at Klaus and the others with a cold smile, and said, "Piss off." Green light flashed, and a series of black vines as thick as a human arm sprouted from the ground. Klaus' trio were instantly bound before being thrown off the platform. Bam, bam, bam. The three of them landed in quick succession, and even though they didn't suffer any injuries, they were still knocked senseless momentarily. The Magus Tower wins the 8th battle. Karpus took a glance at Hank. This boy had a rotten personality, but Karpus had to admit that he was a rare prodigy far more powerful than anyone that Chaos School had to offer. "We won!" A burst of cheers erupted from the Magus Tower members. Even though they had already anticipated this result, they were still quite happy to see it eventuate. Meanwhile, an oppressive silence had settled over the audience. They had even lost the 3-on-1 battle, and the Magus Tower had only sent out 2 people this entire time. The loss they had suffered was simply too severe, and many of the kids from the elementary section felt as if their dreams had been crushed. "You're next. Let me end this match now." Hank looked at the remaining 4 Chaos School students with unadulterated disdain in his eyes. The 4 students were a little fearful, but they looked at each other, and still walked onto the platform with their heads held high. Giving up without a fight was much more disgraceful than suffering a loss. The 4 students consisted of 2 third-tier magic casters and 2 second-tier magic casters. They were all swatted off the platform by vines in less than 10 seconds, thereby capping off a landslide victory for the Magus Tower. Hank turned to the deathly silent audience with a disdainful expression, and said, "Before coming here, I thought this would be an interesting match, but it looks like I expected too much. To be frank, all of you are trash." Everyone looked up at Hank with enraged expressions as fury burned in their hearts. However, they had indeed been crushed in the match, so they couldn't offer any retort. As such, they could only bow their heads with gritted teeth and endure the humiliation. The oppressive atmosphere was very stifling. Everyone was waiting for Karpus to announce the final result so they could leave this place as quickly as they could. "Hee hee." Hank shook his head in a condescending manner before making his way toward the Magus Tower members. At that moment, a clear, crisp voice sounded from the entrance of the venue. "Hey? Am I too late?" The voice wasn't very loud, and was quite mellow, but it was still clearly audible amid the deathly silence. "Who is it?" Many people turned in its direction, only to discover a half-elf little girl in a set of black magician robes standing at the entrance. The match was already over, and everyone was waiting for Vice Principal Karpus to announce the final result. It was going to the shortest match in Chaos School's history, and also the most humiliating one. So what was this half-elf little girl doing here? "It's Amy." Daphne was overjoyed. Her dejected mood immediately lightened up at the sight of her friend. "I've waited for you for so long." Krasser rushed over to Mag and Amy, and stuck out his hand as he said, "Give me my breakfast." "Is that Master Krasser's disciple? I think she's supposed to be one of the Chaos School representatives, right? She's so young. Does she really know magic?" "Yeah, she looks like she's only about 3 or 4 years old. She probably can't even hold a wand properly. How is she going to be able to battle someone?" Some of the teachers were discussing quietly among themselves. They didn't think that anyone could reverse this situation, not even Krasser's disciple. On the stage, Hank also turned to look at Amy. He then glanced at the excited Krasser, and furrowed his brows as he asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Amy, and I'm here to beat up bad people today. I came late because I overslept." "You're the bad people, right?" Amy stepped forward and crossed her arms. She looked at the Magus Tower magic casters with a serious expression, and said, "I'm Amy, and I'm super fierce." "Pfft! Ha ha ha, she's so cute. How can she be so adorable? My heart is melting. I can't believe there could be such an adorable little elf. Her legs are really short and stubby, but she's still so adorable. I don't even care if she can fight anymore." The oppressive atmosphere was immediately alleviated. Everyone simply couldn't help but smile at the sight of Amy, who had her arms crossed and was putting on what she thought to be a fierce expression. However, no one believed that she was actually here to fight. Arg! She's so adorable. My heart can't take it. Daphne's eyes widened like an obsessive fangirl's. Amy has appeared after the entire school had just suffered extreme humiliation. If she can defeat that guy, then she'll definitely become the hero of Chaos School. Of course, there's almost no chance of that actually happening. Ignazio was also getting a little excited. The situation doesn't look very good here. Is the match over already? Mag quickly assessed the situation, only to find that all of the Magus Tower representatives were in high spirits, while all of the Chaos School students were very dejected. Some of them had even sustained injuries, and it was quite clear that they had all been defeated. Mag had thought that the match had only begun not long ago, so he hadn't been in a hurry to get Amy to the school. Thankfully, they seemed to have arrived just in time. Hank was going to hurl some insults at Amy, but he was too busy trying to repress his laughter. How could she be so adorable? She was so small and delicate, yet she was trying to put on a menacing expression. Was she trying to make him die of laughter? You say you're going to fight me, little brat. Hank pinched himself on the leg to keep himself from bursting into laughter, and he appraised Amy with a stern expression. That's right, green fur monster, I'm here to beat you. Amy nodded earnestly before turning to Krasu with a hesitant expression as she asked, Master Krasu, is he the bad guy? That's right, little Amy. All you have to do is beat all of them. Krasu nodded with a smile before turning to Mag as he said, Please take a seat, Mr. Mag, I'm absolutely starving. Green fur monster. Hank glared at Amy. He detested other people making fun of his hair, and he couldn't stand the fact that a half-breed brat had given him such a terrible nickname. As expected, those half-breeds were all obnoxious uncultured creatures. No matter how much they looked like humans, they simply weren't the same. So you're Master Krasu's disciple. We came all the way from Rhoda for you. Little brat, you can fight me if you're not afraid of death. I'll show you the power of the Magus Tower. Hank pointed a finger at Amy with a look of disdain and mockery. If I were you, I'd retract that finger. Otherwise, you may not have a finger left to retract. Krasu glared coldly at Hank. Hank's expression immediately changed, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand as he gulped nervously. In that instant, he felt as if he had seen killing intent in Krasu's eyes. Stupid old fart, I'm going to teach your disciple a good lesson. Hank lowered his head, and gritted his teeth with a hateful expression. So she's Master Krasu's disciple. She's even younger than I imagined. Does she really know magic? Won't I just be embarrassing myself by attacking her? George surveyed Amy with furrowed brows. Father, I'm going to go beat up the bad guys now. Please give me power. Amy turned to look at Mag with an earnest expression. Make sure to be safe. Mag smiled as he gently imprinted his right thumb against Amy's forehead. I will. Amy nodded before turning to Hank as she yelled, Green fur monster, don't you dare go running away. I'm coming to beat all of you up. Amy then began to walk onto the stage. Her legs were quite short, so she was walking quite slowly, but her footsteps were very firm and determined. Is she really going to fight? But she's just a little 4-year-old girl. Is she going to face off against the Magus Tower all on her own? Everyone looked with incredulous expressions as Amy took the stage. However, neither her father nor her master were stopping her, and they were even encouraging her. What was going on here? Amy climbed onto the stage with difficulty, and she wielded her little wand in her hand as she turned to the Magus Tower contestants before saying, You can challenge me now. Everyone fell silent upon hearing Amy's words before erupting into raucous cheers. They had been very depressed for the entire morning. From George dealing them 7 consecutive defeats to Hank defeating the remaining 7 in 2 separate battles, Chaos School hadn't been able to pose a threat from beginning to finish. As such, the entire match had been quite a humiliating process for them. However, this little girl had taken the stage as a Chaos School representative, and was telling the Magus Tower magic casters that they could challenge her. Her confidence and bravery immediately set the entire scene alight. Even if she were just a little girl that was running her mouth, her confident display still managed to reinvigorate everyone. She embodied the unyielding spirit of Chaos School, one that would never give up even in the face of adversity. "Team leader, is that our 15th team member?" someone asked. "The principal told me yesterday that the final slot would be reserved for a special person, and Master Krasu's disciple is the most special student in our school, so it has to be her." Klaus looked at Amy with mixed emotions in his eyes. He didn't have any confidence that Amy could actually win, but at the very least, she didn't bring shame to Chaos School. She showed everyone the confidence and attitude that a magic caster should have. In contrast, they had been comprehensively defeated before walking around with dejected expressions, setting a very bad example for the younger students in the school. For that, they were feeling quite embarrassed. The other team members' thoughts also mirrored his, and they stood straighter as a resolute light appeared in their eyes. Failure wasn't disgraceful, but slouching around like defeated dogs certainly was. Karpus turned to Amy and a benevolent smile appeared on his face. For Krasu Anurian to fight over her indicated that she had to be a brilliant prodigy. However, she had been studying magic for too short a time for her to have made any significant progress. Even so, her personality and confidence ensured that she was going to become a powerful magic caster in the future. After all, the most important factor in forging a powerful individual was their heart. "That's Krasu's disciple? She doesn't look like anything special, so why is Krasu so confident in allowing her to battle?" Abbott glanced at Amy before turning to Mag. Back when Hank pointed at the little girl just then, a different aura seemed to have emanated from his body for a split second, but he looked just like a normal person again now. Mag sat down beside Krasu with a lunchbox on his lap, and said apologetically, "Sorry, Amy was in a bit of physical discomfort last night, so I let her sleep a little longer this morning. We would almost miss the match." "That's all right, little Amy's sleep is far more important than fighting these little brats." Krasu waved his hand nonchalantly as he took the lunchbox from Mag. He opened the lunchbox with an indignant expression as he continued, "Speaking of which, you sure made me wait a long time, Mag. I'm a frail old man, and I almost starved to death because of you. Is it a good idea to eat here?" Mag asked. "Why not? It would be very inhumane to starve an old man to death." Krasu didn't hesitate in the slightest as he lifted the lid off the tofu pudding and braised chicken and rice. The fragrant scent of soybean and braised chicken immediately began to waft through the air. The scent of shiitake mushrooms and chicken were particularly rich, and the smell spread very quickly, instantly attracting a lot of attention. "That smells so good. What is it?" Many people immediately began to search for the source of the aroma. It was simply irresistible, and they began to look around almost instinctively. "Which little guy is eating food in the venue again?" Grinton turned around with a dark expression, displaying his might as the school coordinator as he prepared to send the culprit to the coordinator's office. "You got a problem?" Krasu put down his chopsticks and looked back at Grinton. Grinton's expression immediately stiffened upon seeing that, and he put on a smile as he said, "Please enjoy your meal." "I will." Krasu nodded as he began to tuck in. The nearby teachers and students all looked on, trying to stop their drool from rolling down their chins. Amy's words swept up a massive commotion in the venue, and also irked all of the Magus Tower magic casters. This little 4-year-old girl was arrogant enough to tell them to challenge her. Even though she was Krasu Anurian's disciple, she was simply far too young. Even the elven princess was only a second-tier magic caster at her age, and she had been studying magic for far longer than Amy had by this age. No matter how prodigiously talented Amy was, she had only been studying magic for just over a month, so it would be quite extraordinary if she had even become a first-tier magic caster. As such, anyone among them should be able to crush her with ease. It was exactly because of this that no one was willing to challenge her. After all, she was only a little 4-year-old girl, and even if they were to win the battle, it would be seen as bullying, so there would be no glory in such victory. George, I'll leave her to you. Show her the power of our Magus Tower. Hank turned to George before patting him on the shoulder. All right. George was a little reluctant, but he didn't refuse. He slowly stepped onto the platform, and positioned himself about 4 meters away from Amy. He had been assigned a mission prior to coming to Chaos City, and that was to bring down Krasu's disciple. In fact, that objective was even more important than securing victory in the match against Chaos City, so he had to take advantage of this opportunity. George Goodyear. George introduced himself to Amy. I'm Amy. Amy also responded in kind. There was a hint of excitement shimmering on her little face as it was her first official battle with another magic caster. Let the 10th battle begin, Karpaz announced. The venue gradually fell silent, and everyone stared intently at the two people on the stage. They didn't think for a second that Amy would be able to defeat George, but they wanted to see just how far she could push him. It was George's first time facing such a young opponent, and he was feeling a little awkward because of that. He furrowed his brows, and said, "You're younger than me, so I'll let you go first. Don't say that I bullied you. If you know any spells, then unleash them now or you won't get an opportunity to do so. You're older than me, so I'll give you a chance to unleash a spell as well. That will be your only chance to use your magic." Amy looked back at George with a serious expression. Arrogant little brat. Green light began to converge toward the wand in his hand as he prepared to defeat her using a single attack. I'm super serious. The short stick in Amy's hand transformed into a purple wand, which slowly hovered in front of her. She spread open her little hands, and a ball of red flames, as well as a blue ball of icy flames, emerged from her palms at the same time. They were then slowly combined to create an ice fire ball that was half blue and half red. Amy held onto her wand, and cried, "Go, ice fire bomb!" The ice fire ball had a long blue and red tail trailing behind it as it whistled toward George. Half of the air around twisted and warped from the scorching heat, while the other half was frozen solid, creating a marvelous spectacle. What powerful magic waves! The Chaos School students' eyes widened in shock. The fireball magic and flames of extreme frost that Amy had summoned earlier were also quite shocking to them, and they were completely stunned by the fact that she was able to combine the two. The fireball magic and flames of extreme frost were both the most basic of elementary spells, but after combining the two, the magic waves had already reached the level of an intermediate spell. Furthermore, the ice fire ball looked as if it were going to explode at any moment, and everyone was struck by an urge to back away just from looking at it. The fact that such a powerful spell was unleashed by a little 4-year-old girl put everyone else to shame. The spectators below the stage also looked on with wide eyes. They didn't harbor any high hopes at all, but Amy was already displaying power that completely exceeded their expectations. Perhaps a miracle really could take place? Intermediate spell magic waves, and she unleashed that attack almost instantaneously. Looks like I'll have to re-evaluate her. Hank looked at Amy with a dark expression. He didn't think that she posed a threat to him, but for her to be so powerful at just 4 years of age indicated her boundless potential. The Magus Tower magic casters were all deep in thought, wondering if they would be able to stop that attack if they were in George's shoes. Not bad, but that's not going to be enough. George looked at the oncoming ice fire ball with a calm expression. He took a couple of steps backward, and waved his wand through the air at the same time as he chanted the spell for his gale pillar. Boom! A pillar of wind descended from the sky, crashing down 2 meters in front of George, right in the path of the oncoming ice fire ball. The green wind blades lashed out like scimitars, and it was exactly this attack that had torn through Neil's rocky armor before throwing him off the platform. The ice fireball crashed directly into the gale pillar as everyone looked on with rapt focus. The pillar of wind tremored violently as if it had been struck by a meteorite, and it shifted about a meter toward George, but it still stopped in the end. "I told you, you only get one chance to unleash a spell." A victorious smile appeared on George's face. It appeared that the ice fireball wasn't anything special in the end. "Ice fire bomb, explode." Amy gently twirled the wand in her hand. Bam! An explosive boom erupted from within the gale pillar, instantly tearing it to shreds as blue and red flames surged forth, sending powerful magic waves radiating in all directions. How could this be? George's eyes widened as he looked at the mushroom cloud that was rising up before him. He was then swept into the air by a scorching heat wave and thrown violently off the platform. The powerful magic waves continued onward, crashing into the dome of light and setting off vibrant fireworks as a result. Unbelievable! The entire venue fell into a stunned silence for a split second before everyone erupted into cheers. Everyone stared at Amy with excitement and shock etched on their faces. One attack. Amy had used just a single attack to snap George's 7-match winning streak. Furthermore, it had been a crushing victory where George had been comprehensively beaten. Her powerful combat prowess completely belied her adorable appearance, and if they hadn't seen her unleash that spell with their very own eyes, they would have found it impossible to believe that such an adorable little elf could defeat George with such ease. What a powerful spell! Is she already a 4th-tier magic caster? Klaus was also looking at Amy with an astonished expression. Even though he was outside the dome of light, he could still sense how powerful that spell was. If it were to explode in front of him, he knew that he would be completely defenseless before it. The Chaos School students' mouths were all wide open in shock. Even the representatives that had been chosen to participate in this match had to admit that this little girl was more powerful than their team leader, Klaus. How could this be? Impossible. George's clothes were in tatters, and his face was covered in soot as he sat at the edge of the platform. He raised his head with difficulty to look up at Amy, and was still struggling to come to terms with the fact that he had been defeated. "I told you that you would only get one chance to use a spell. You've lost." Amy looked at George with a serious expression. "You?" A burst of fury welled up in George's heart. His humiliation and rage further compounded the injuries that he had sustained, and he blacked out on the spot. "Amy is so powerful. That was so cool." Daphne stood up with eyes that were practically glowing with excitement and admiration. "How could she be this powerful? I feel a lot of pressure on my shoulders as her friend." Ignatius scratched his head with a conflicted expression. "Little Amy is so powerful. I didn't think that her magic aptitude would be so good. To think that I tried to dissuade Mr. Mag from getting Amy to learn magic." Luna's mouth was slightly agape as she looked at Amy in disbelief. She thought back to what she had said to Mag in the past, and a flush appeared on her cheeks in embarrassment. She really is a prodigy. To think that she has such brilliant mastery over magic at such a young age. All of the records set by the Elven princess are most likely going to be broken by her. Karpaz was also looking at Amy with a stunned expression. Merging ice and fire required one to cultivate in both ice and fire magic, and they also had to achieve an extremely high level of mastery over both. She's improved significantly once again in just one night. As expected, little Amy was born to be a magic caster. Krasu had put down his chopsticks, and was looking at Amy with a content smile. "Looks like Amy has grown more powerful again. Her rate of progression is placing a lot of pressure on me." Despite those thoughts, a proud smile still appeared on Mag's face as she looked at Amy. A 4-year-old 4th-tier magic caster, not even the Elven princess was anywhere near her level at her age. This must be why Krasu and Urian were able to set their century-long rivalry aside to instruct the same disciple. A prodigy of this caliber may not appear even in 1,000 years. Abbott looked at Amy with an astonished yet grave expression on his face. "Chaos School wins the 10th battle," Karpaz announced. George was carried away by 2 Magus Tower magic casters, while thunderous cheers erupted from the audience. No one could have predicted that this young magic caster would bring Chaos School's first victory. "Looks like I underestimated you, little brat. But isn't your master supposed to be the most powerful melee magic caster on the continent? So why don't you know any melee magic?" Hank walked onto the platform with a dark expression of mockery on his face. Hank's entrance made the entire venue fall silent again. His easy victories against the 7 Chaos School representatives had left a deep impression on everyone. He was clearly more powerful than George, so would Amy still be able to defeat him? The Magus Tower magic casters were also a little concerned. They were confident in Hank's abilities, but Amy's spell from just then was simply too powerful. None of them would have been able to set up a convincing defense against that spell. George and Hank had easily defeated 14 of the Chaos School representatives, and even though they were a little disgruntled that they wouldn't get a chance to shine, at the very least, they would be able to complete their mission. However, an unfathomably powerful half-elf magic caster had suddenly appeared, injecting an unknown element into this match. If the Magus Tower were to lose this match because of a little 4-year-old girl, they would all have to face the flaming wrath of their masters. Hank was also in a rather foul mood. As the team leader of the Magus Tower, his objective was to obtain a perfect victory to humiliate Chaos School. However, his plan had been foiled by Amy. Not only had George lost, he had lost in a very humiliating manner. He was a third-tier magic caster, but he had been insta-killed by a 4-year-old half-elf. If news of this were to spread, then the Magus Tower's reputation would most likely take a severe hit. As such, he had to win this battle to recover some dignity for the Magus Tower. Furthermore, one of his main objectives for this trip was to defeat Krasua's disciple. His master had told him prior to his departure that had to embarrass Krasua should an opportunity present itself. That was the most important thing that he had to do. Conflict between a melee and a long-distance faction had also arisen in the Magus Tower before. However, due to Krasua distancing himself from the Magus Tower, and a lack of melee magic casters, the conflict between the two factions gradually died down. However, his master, Brent, was an avid supporter of Richard, and he had always held a grudge against Krasua. As such, he really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to thoroughly embarrass Krasua. Amy had already displayed her magical abilities, and even if Hank were to defeat her, it wouldn't win him any honor or glory. Instead, he would only be known as a bully who had beaten a child a quarter of his age. However, if he could make this a battle between melee and long-distance magic, then he could prove a point by defeating Amy. She was Krasua's only disciple, while he was representing the Magus Tower as Brent's disciple. As such, a victory for him could be declared as a victory for long-distance magic over melee magic. As for the disparities between age and power level, that wasn't important. The only important thing was the end result of the battle. People would only learn that the disciple of the number 1 melee magic caster on the continent had been defeated by Hank, who was Brent's disciple. His master would certainly be very pleased to hear this. With that in mind, a sinister smile appeared on Hank's. He was like a wolf appraising a little lamb, thinking about how to best tear into her with his sharp fangs. Melee magic? I'm super strong in melee magic as well, Amy responded with a serious expression. She then continued, but do you really want me to use my big stick to knock you on the head? You might end up crying. Another burst of cheers instantly erupted from below the stage. Amy's performance had filled everyone with excitement and adrenaline. Everyone was wondering whether Amy would even accept Hank's challenge. Even if she were to turn him down, no one could blame her. After all, even upperclassman Klaus had been easily defeated by him, and it was already a brilliant feat that she was able to defeat George. However, to everyone's surprise, Amy's reply was still as simple as ever. She still wore her usual adorable expression, but she somehow appeared really badass at the same time. As expected of my disciple, she has the flair that I had in my younger days. Melee magic is the best. If anyone begs to differ, then knock them on the head until they're forced to concede. Krasu was chortling with glee. Aside from with Urian, he hadn't argued with anyone about melee and long-distance magic for a long time. He was initially quite depressed at the notion that melee magic would once again fall into obscurity after he passed away, but Amy's emergence had given him new hope. At the very least, he would be able to pass down his melee magic to the most brilliant prodigy he had ever seen. As for just how powerful melee magic was, that would be displayed in battle. The countless magic casters that he had defeated in his life could testify to its power, and all of Amy's future opponents would also learn this lesson. Melee magic? Could it be that she has also mastered melee magic in such a short time? Abbott glanced at Krasu out of the corner of his eyes, and an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. He harbored no animosity for Krasu. In fact, Krasu had been his idol when he first joined the Magus Tower. However, Great Elder Richard had since taken over the Magus Tower, and it was quite obvious what he wanted to achieve by sending this team of magic casters to Chaos City. George's loss was already quite embarrassing for the Magus Tower. If Hank were to lose as well, then everything would be reduced to a pitiful joke. The Magus Tower team would be reduced to stepping stones for Krasu's disciple as she went on to achieve greater feats. Everything is still under control. Even if she could unleash that attack again, Hank would be able to defend against it. Melee magic casters are at a complete disadvantage when facing long-distance magic casters of the same tier, and it's no simple task for her to close down the distance between herself and Hank. Also, Hank's intermediate, Binding Vines, is a natural bane of all melee magic casters. A string of thoughts raced through Abbott's mind, and he quickly calmed down. He looked up at Amy on the platform and heaved an internal sigh. A supreme prodigy like her would surely stand at the pinnacle of the Norland continent someday if she didn't die an early death. Little brat, I hope you're not going to be crying soon. I'm not going to hold back against you. Hank was furious as he glowered at Amy. Green fur monster, I hope you don't cry too loud. You're so ugly you'd be really scary if you cried. Try not to scare the little kids. Amy looked at Hank with a serious expression. Let the 11th battle commence. Karpaz announced. The two teachers were standing quite close behind the two contestants. The female teacher behind Amy was only about 2 meters away from her, and it appeared that she was preparing to step in at any moment. Little brat, are you using that little stick as a melee magic caster? Hank wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he looked at the wand in Amy's hand with a mocking smile, and said, Don't you have a staff? Is Master Krasus so poor that he can't even afford a staff for his disciple? What kind of melee magic caster are you supposed to be? In my name, unseal this staff. Queen Amy's wand, transform. Amy put on a serious expression, and purple light flashed from the purple crystal on his wand, upon which a purple magic staff over 2 meters in length appeared in her hands. A round purple crystal ball roughly the size of a human fist was nestled on the tip of the staff, and dazzling purple golden light emanated from within the crystal. Wind fire wheels, reveal. 2 balls of fire suddenly appeared beneath Amy's feet as she wielded her staff in her little hands. She rose about 20 centimeters into the air, and the 2 balls of fire quickly revolved beneath her. Green fur monster, you mocked my master, so I'm angry now. I'm going to make you cry. Amy looked at Hank with a serious expression, and she pointed her staff forward as her wind fire wheels sent her whizzing through the air. Her wand extended. It became a staff. She can fly. And she's stepping on fire. The audience looked on with wide eyes as Amy hurtled toward Hank atop her wind fire wheels, wielding her massive staff as she did so. Not many people had ever seen melee magic casters in action. In their eyes, magic casters should stand on the spot in a composed manner, gracefully waving their wands around to unleash spells. Even magic casters who could summon armor only did so as a means of improving their defensive prowess so they could unleash their spells with even more poise and composure. The Chaos School teachers gave some lessons about melee magic casters from time to time, but they were only general information lessons rather than ones instructing students how to use melee magic. That was because there was simply no teacher that could teach melee magic, so none of the students knew much about it. As such, everyone was looking at Amy with amazement in their eyes. If magic casters wanted to move quickly, the simplest way was through teleportation magic. However, that was only spatial transference, and they couldn't actually fly. In contrast, Amy's ability to fly in the air using her fire wheels was very badass. Below the stage, a student turned to a teacher, and said, "Teacher, I also want to learn that. Even I want to learn that." The teacher was also staring at Amy with astonishment. Does this little brat really know melee magic? Hank's eyes narrowed as he looked at the oncoming Amy, but he still pointed his wand forward, and chanted, "Vines hidden beneath the earth, heed my call. Ensnare your enemies and plunge them into an eternal abyss." Green light began to shimmer from the ground around him, and black vines erupted like long squid tentacles, numbering 8. Each of the vines was over 2 meters long, and about as thick as a grown man's leg, and they created a net that came crashing down upon Amy. It appeared that he was trying to flatten Amy with a single attack. The female teacher immediately shot forth and raised her wand as if she were going to step in. However, Karpaz raised a hand to prevent her from acting too far in advance. Mag rose unconsciously to his feet and stared at the platform with a nervous expression. "Calm down, this is nothing." In contrast, Kraso was very calm and collected as he ate a spoonful of tofu pudding. Everyone below the stage was also very nervous. After all, this was the attack that Hank had used to throw Klaus and the others off the platform. Now, he was using it solely on Amy, and she was too close to the vines to evade them. Even if she wanted to unleash an ice fireball, there simply wasn't enough time. Was this going to be the end? "Amy, you have to win." Daphne wrung her little hands tightly together with a nervous expression. "Please go and support our new domain mangabyte.com. Will she be able to break free?" The Chaos School representatives on the stage were also very anxious. They had been bound by those peculiar vines before, so they knew just how fearsome those vines were. Aside from simple ensnarement, there were also some small sharp spikes on the vines that had a paralysis effect. Even now, they were all still feeling rather feeble. "Even a 5th-tier magic caster wouldn't be able to escape from my vines at such close quarters. You cocky little brat, I'm going to teach you a lesson today. In life, there are some people that you can't afford to mess with." Hank chuckled coldly as he abruptly clenched his right hand. The 8 vines quickly converged, completely concealing Amy's tiny figure beneath them. Soon, there was only a black bulbous vine structure left at the center of the platform. "Is it over?" Everyone's hearts sank upon seeing that. Surely there was no way for Amy to escape from this. In contrast, the Magus Tower magic casters were elated. Amy was very young, but she posed a potent threat to them. Now that her defeat was set in stone, the match was over. Right at that moment, Amy's voice sounded from within the mass of vines. "Green fur monster, your vines are just as annoying as you are." Bam! A dull thump erupted, and a huge hole was blasted in the vines around Amy's body. Plant fibers flew in all directions, and the vines recoiled as if they had been dealt a heavy blow. Thus, Amy re-emerged with her staff in her hands. Purple light revolved around the crystal on the tip of her staff, and the wind fire wheels beneath her feet were still revolving at a high speed. She burst out from the broken cocoon of vines, and looked at Hank with a calm and collected expression. "She's so cool. My heart can't take this. I'm about to pass out." Daphne reached out toward Amy from below the stage before fainting in her chair. "What a scary woman." Ignatsu took a glance at Daphne before shaking his head as he scooted away from her a little. "She escaped." Cries of surprise erupted below the stage. The entire audience was reignited by joy and excitement, and at the same time, everyone was stunned by Amy's power. How could this be? Hank looked at the shredded vines on the ground with incredulity in his eyes, unable to come to terms with what he was seeing. His intermediate spell had been smashed apart by her staff. She was just a 4-year-old girl who had been studying magic for just over a month. If news of this were to reach the Magus Tower, then his title as a genius would undoubtedly be stripped away from him. Well done, little brat, you've successfully enraged me. I'm going to show you just how powerful a 4th-tier magic caster is. Hank gritted his teeth as he raised his wand with his right hand. At the same time, he quickly chanted, "Wood element of nature, heed my call. Transform wood into arrows, and bring forth a torrential storm." Crap! He's going to use the intermediate spell, Violent Arrow Storm. This is an intermediate spell that's several times more powerful than his Binding Vines. If he succeeds in unleashing it, he'll be able to summon a downpour of countless wooden arrows to create an inescapable barrage. A panicked expression appeared on Claw's face as he unconsciously stepped forward toward the platform. This is bad, that little girl won't be able to defend herself from that spell. The Chaos School teachers below the stage were also getting quite anxious again. The audience had just been reinvigorated by Amy's brilliant escape, but they were getting nervous again. Amy had given them many surprises already, and they were all wondering what she would do against her opponent's spell. He's chanting a spell while standing rooted to the spot against a melee magic caster? Mag scoffed internally as he shook his head. Take this. Amy instantly appeared in front of Hank before raising her staff up high. Crack! A muffled thump erupted as the purple staff slammed into Hank's face, causing it to instantly twist and warp as blood gushed out of his nose. Fury, panic, pain, indignation, grief. In a brief instant, 5 different expressions flashed through Hank's face. He then collapsed to the ground and howled with pain. His chant was cut off halfway, so his spell had naturally been nullified. Hank could only feel an excruciating pain spearing through his nose, and his tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. As for the battle, that was the last thing on his mind. He had been taken out by a single strike. The entire audience fell completely silent. Everyone looked at Amy, who was wielding a staff that was more than twice as tall as she was, and they all wore peculiar expressions. They were thinking that Amy would unleash some kind of spell to combat her opponent, but no one had expected her to use such a brutish method. However, it had to be said that everyone was feeling extremely satisfied. The green-haired brat had been insulting them all morning, and it was delightful seeing him fall to the ground as he sobbed and bled. Has Hank lost? The Magus Tower magic casters were in a complete panic. George was still unconscious, and Hank had just been felled by a single staff strike. He was the most powerful one among them, and if he were to lose, then no one would stand a chance against Amy. How could she master melee magic to such an extent in just a month? That requires extraordinary magic control and bodily coordination. Abbott stared at Amy with an incredulous look on his face. At his power level, he could see a lot more than the average person, and as a result, he was able to appreciate Amy's skills to a greater extent. Amy's mastery of melee magic was simply incredible to him. Even as a 7th-tier magic caster with great proficiency in magic control, he still wasn't confident that he could master melee magic to such a degree in just a month. He had to admit that there were certain prodigies in the world who were somehow able to simply disregard age. Looks like our plans to win the match and humiliate Krasu will both be foiled. The Magus Tower has become a stepping stone for her instead. Abbott looked at Amy with mixed emotions in his eyes. With her superb aptitude and the Lords of Fire and Ice as her masters, she was undoubtedly going to experience a meteoric rise, one that would perhaps be even more dramatic than that of the Elven princess. So this is melee magic. It's like a knight who knows magic. That's so cool. Teacher, can we also learn this type of magic when we grow up? We also want to learn melee magic. Does that mean our Chaos School has won the match? So she's our ace in the hole. There was only a brief silence before waves of cheers rang out across the venue. Some of the little kids were already eagerly asking to be taught melee magic by their teachers. Yes. Grinton couldn't help but clench his fists with elation. He had thought that they were going to be dealt severe humiliation, but Amy's emergence had completely turned the tables. In fact, there was a good chance that their 4-year-long losing streak would be snapped today. Novan also wore a smile on his face as his gaze lingered on Amy's staff for a moment before he turned his attention to Hank, who was still lying on the ground. "Green fur monster, I told you to cry more quietly. You're going to scare the little kids." Amy looked at Hank with a serious expression. Hank struggled into a sitting position with a hand clasped over his nose, and he glowered at Amy with rage burning in his eyes. He was furious that his chant had been cut off by Amy. If he could have unleashed his violent arrow storm, then he would have definitely been able to secure victory. He would rather die than lose to a little half-elf brat. "Magus Tower representative, do you concede?" Karpaz asked. "No." Hank struggled to his feet as he summoned a barrier of green light in front of him. That barrier quickly transformed into a spherical wooden shield that encapsulated his entire body, and he began to chant the spell for his violent arrow storm once again. "So you won't concede?" Amy's brows furrowed as she raised her staff once again. Rib. The wooden shield that had been able to easily block the combined attacks from Claw's trio was torn apart like papier-mâché. The purple staff came crashing down with unstoppable force, and instantly struck Hank in the face. This time, the blood shooting from his nose reached even further, and his howls rang out even louder. "Do you concede?" "I'll never concede." Bam! "Do you concede?" "I won't." Bam! "Do you concede?" 211 Bam! "Wah! I haven't even said anything yet." Bam! Amy looked at the bruised and battered Hank with an apologetic expression, and said, "Sorry, I got used to hitting you. You should concede this time, right?" Hank was kneeling on the ground about 3 meters away, and he was glaring at Amy with resentment seething in his eyes. His body was trembling, and tears were flowing uncontrollably down his face. This was the first time in his life that he had ever suffered such humiliation. However, he knew that no matter what he did, he wouldn't be able to summon his violent arrow storm before the staff hit him in the face again. He was plunged into despair with that realization. Am I going to concede? Am I going to concede to a filthy half-breed like her? Hank clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as his chest rose and fell violently. No, he couldn't do it. He would rather die than concede to a half-breed. Magus Tower representative, do you concede? Karpaz asked again. The result of this battle was quite apparent. Engaging a melee magic caster in close quarters combat was a nightmare for all long-range magic casters. That was common knowledge in the magic world. During this battle, everyone had witnessed the rise of a scintillating young melee magic caster. Both Amy's melee and long-range magic had reached a 4th-tier caliber. A 4-year-old dual 4th-tier magic caster had never been seen before, and she was surely going to become famous across the entire continent in the near future. Looks like you're crying too much to be able to speak. Don't cry anymore, I won't hit you again. Amy looked at Hank with a sympathetic expression. She dispelled the wind fire wheels beneath her feet, and descended back onto the ground as she prepared to shrink her staff. Die, little brat! Right at that moment, a sinister expression appeared on Hank's face as he pulled out a silver bead before hurling it at Amy. A loud thunderclap erupted, and a spherical orb of lightning hurtled toward Amy, almost quicker than the eye could follow. Look out! The teacher standing near Amy immediately stepped forward and tried to formulate a magic shield, but the lightning orb was simply far too fast. Bastard! Below the stage, Krasud tossed aside his lunchbox, and disappeared from his seat in the blink of an eye. Fireball! Amy looked at the oncoming lightning orb, and instinctively unleashed a fireball spell. Purple golden light immediately erupted from the oracle stone on the tip of her staff, and a ball of purple golden light shot forth to meet the lightning orb. Crap! Abbott's expression changed drastically upon seeing that, and he immediately leaped onto the stage. Novan was still sitting in his seat. He raised his right hand toward the platform, but he hesitated at the sight of the purple golden light erupting from Amy's staff. Amy! Mag also abruptly rose to his feet and charged toward the stage. He didn't think that Hank would play such a dirty trick. He was using a sealed forbidden spell, and that lightning orb was at least a 7th tier spell, so there was no way that Amy would be able to defend herself against it. The silver lightning orb left a dazzling trajectory in its wake as it hurtled toward Amy. At the same time, the purple golden fireball shot forth from her staff, flying directly toward the oncoming lightning orb. Everyone below the stage was perched on the edges of their seats. Hank had unleashed a sneak attack, and he seemed to have used some sort of banned item. If no one could step in time to save Amy, then the consequences could be catastrophic. As for the fireball magic that Amy had unleashed as an instinctive response, its purple golden flames were also very dazzling, but no one expected it to be able to counter the lightning orb. Boom! The purple golden fireball struck the lightning orb in midair and exploded violently. The anticipated scenario where the lightning orb destroyed the purple golden fireball didn't eventuate. Instead, the two clashed and both exploded in a split second. The terrifying power imbued within the purple golden fireball had kept the lightning orb at bay. Electricity and fire erupted, sending fearsome heat waves and shock waves sweeping through the air, causing purple golden flames and silver lightning to radiate in all directions. The two teachers on the stage immediately unleashed magic shields and hurtled back in retreat. An explosion of such devastating force presented a lethal threat even to them. Crasso crashed down from the sky, landing right in front of Amy as he summoned a wall of fire. The flames and heat waves sweeping toward Amy struck the wall of fire, but the wall didn't even tremor in the slightest. Get back! Abbott also leaped onto the stage, and grabbed the dumbfounded Hank by the collar before dragging him back in retreat. At the same time, he waved his wand and 8 walls of ice materialized in front of them. The hurriedly prepared ice walls were very brittle, and they stood no chance against the oncoming heat waves. All 8 walls were shattered in the blink of an eye before the heat waves struck Hank, instantly burning away his green hair and eyebrows. Miniature bolts of lightning then followed, causing his body to spasm violently. Crackle! The remnant heat waves and electric currents swept into the dome of light around the platform, and it was as if countless fireworks were erupting at once, threatening to destroy the dome of light. Phew! Abbott dragged Hank out from the dome of light, and threw him onto the ground. His forehead was lined with cold sweat, and he looked down at his hand, only to discover that his fingertips had been charred black. How was she able to block the lightning ball spell that Master gave me? Hank lay sprawled on the ground as he stared at Amy with incredulity in his eyes. In that split second, he had been gripped by a sense of impending doom. That tiny little fireball that she had unleashed was no less powerful than the 7th tier lightning ball spell his master had given him. Smoke was still rising from his body, which was completely numb. His gaze fell on Crasso, who had just dispelled his wall of fire, and his heart immediately sank. This bastard should be killed. Mag heaved a sigh of relief at the sight of Amy, who was completely unscathed with Crasso standing in front of her. He then turned his attention to Hank with cold killing intent shimmering in his eyes. She blocked it. A burst of cheers instantly erupted from below the stage. Even though Crasso was the one who had shielded her from the aftermath of that explosion, the fact of the matter was that the fireball she had unleashed was comparable in power to Hank's lightning orb. That was simply extraordinary. Those were 7th tier magic waves. Is she already a 7th tier magic caster? All of the Chaos School teachers looked at Amy with incredulity in their eyes. One of the teachers couldn't help but exclaim, a 4-year-old 7th tier magic caster? She's not just a prodigy anymore, she's a freak. Another elderly teacher shook his head, and said, No, it's her staff. If I'm not mistaken, then that purple crystal ball on the tip of her staff is most likely the legendary Oracle Stone. When unleashing that fireball spell, she might have triggered its 10 times enhancement effect, or perhaps an even higher level of enhancement. The Oracle Stone. Everyone was stunned again upon hearing that. It was one of the most legendary items in the magic world, but no one was going to doubt that elderly teacher's judgment. After all, Principal Derek was a 10th tier great magic caster, so his expertise was not to be doubted. If she really did trigger such a powerful enhancement effect, then that's also a testament to her aptitude. Even the Oracle Stone has acknowledged her as a worthy owner. Krasu and Urian really have struck gold this time. Derek sighed with an envious look in his eyes. Phew, my heart almost leaped out of my mouth there. Thank heavens Amy is so powerful, otherwise, that sneak attack could have really hurt her. Daphne patted her chest as she glowered at Hank. What a shameless bastard! Not only did he unleash a sneak attack, he used a sealed forbidden spell. He has to be severely punished. Ignatsu was also quite enraged. Magus Tower representative, Hank, has broken the rules by using a sealed forbidden spell to attack Chaos School representative Amy. Thus, Chaos School wins the match, and Hank will receive a lifetime ban from competing in future matches. Karpus turned to the Magus Tower magic casters with a frosty look on his face. We accept this punishment. Abbott nodded with a grave expression. He looked at the greatly enraged Krasu, and his mood became even grimmer. After what Hank had done, the important thing was no longer whether they won the match or not. Instead, he had to think about how he was going to stop Krasu from killing everyone from the Magus Tower. In the eyes of the younger magic casters of the Magus Tower, Kras was a benevolent magic teacher of few words. However, he was far from some kind-hearted old man. The Magus Tower had been reconstructed 3 times in history. The official statement they released each time was that the Magus Tower was undergoing upgrades, and each rebuild really did make the tower grander and more illustrious. However, everyone from the Magus Tower knew that on 2 of those occasions, the reconstruction was an act of necessity as someone had razed it to the ground. That person was none other than Krasu. He was a man who even dared to destroy the Magus Tower in his fits of rage, and he posed a big headache even to the entire empire. Now that Hank had dared to unleash a sneak attack against his disciple, Abbott didn't know what was going to happen next. You accept? I haven't accepted that verdict yet. Krasu stepped forward with a cold smile on his face. Everyone fell silent upon hearing that. Krasu's ability to ward off that heatwave so convincingly had completely stunned everyone. After witnessing that, they had been alerted to the fact that this seemingly frail old man was nowhere near as vulnerable as he seemed. The young magic casters from the Magus Tower all wore fearful expressions. From the devastating fireball that Amy had unleashed and the power that Krasu had displayed, all of them knew that they wouldn't be a match for either of them. Abbott turned to Krasu with a nervous and wary expression. The worst possible scenario had eventuated. He took a glance at the panicked Hank, and hesitated momentarily before working up the courage to step forward with a serious expression. Master Krasu, Hank is indeed at fault in this matter. He used a sealed forbidden spell during his battle. Our Magus Tower concedes our defeat. I will report this matter to the elders of Magus Tower, and they will surely hand down a stern punishment to Hank. Regardless of whether it's in a match like this or a duel between magic casters, his actions were very disgraceful. You're trying to threaten me with the Magus Tower. Krasu's footsteps didn't falter in the slightest as he continued to stride forward with a disdainful look on his face. I wouldn't dare to do that. You were the one who founded the Magus Tower, and spent several decades developing it into a force to be reckoned with. Everyone in the Magus Tower has nothing but respect for you. Abbott lowered his head as he didn't dare to look into Krasu's eyes, but he didn't back down, either. He couldn't back down. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to face the elders, and would be banished from the Magus Tower. Even though Krasu was still an honorary elder of the Magus Tower, the unresolvable conflict he had with the current panel of elders was common knowledge to almost everyone in the Magus Tower. Few people dared to show dissent back when he was still at the Magus Tower, but if he really were to permanently reside in Chaos City, then his influence in the Magus Tower would inevitably wane over time. Krasus stopped in front of Abbot, and asked, "Do you remember the 3 rules I set when founding the Magus Tower?" Abbot was momentarily silent before replying, "Magic casters must be honest, kind, and have justice in their hearts. Anyone lacking those qualities must be banished from the Magus Tower. I'm Brent's disciple, you can't banish me. You don't have the right to do that." Hank immediately flew into a panic, and he shook his head vigorously as he tried to struggle to his feet. "If I were still at the Magus Tower, I'd banish that fat bastard, Brent, as well. Even Richard doesn't dare to speak like that to me. Who do you think you are?" Krasus pursed his lips as he looked at Hank. Hank's entire body had been gripped by fear, but he still gritted his teeth, and said, "You're not a Magus Tower elder anymore, so you don't have the right to banish me. You've already been banished by the panel of elders from the Magus Tower. I'm going to tell my master Hank." "Shush!" Abbot yelled. Even Brent wouldn't dare to say such things to Krasus. This bastard was trying to get everyone killed. Abbot turned to Krasus with an earnest expression, and said, "Master Krasus, I'll definitely be reporting this to the panel of elders, and recommend that they banish Hank from the Magus Tower. I'm ashamed to be part of the same organization with someone like him, and the Magus Tower definitely won't spare him, so I hope. I'm not here to clean up the Magus Tower's mess today, as the Magus Tower has nothing to do with me from this day forth. I'm also ashamed to be part of such a pitiful organization." Krasus shook his head before turning to Hank with a cold smile as he said, "I'm only here to uphold justice for my disciple. I've always said this, young people must be taught their lesson from a young age. Otherwise, they'll have to learn it the hard way when they grow up. It's his honor to be disciplined by Master Krasus in person." Abbot hesitated a while longer before finally stepping aside, revealing Hank to Krasus. The Magus Tower magic casters all looked on with pursed lips, and none of them dared to say anything. "You can't do anything to me. I'm Brent's disciple. I'm a member of the Magus Tower, and you're no longer part of the Magus Tower. If you dare to touch me, you'll have to face the wrath of the Magus Tower." Hank was in a completely frenzied state of panic as he looked at the approaching Krasus. He fell to his knees, and crawled backward as he turned to Abbot with a beseeching look. "Save me, Master Abbot! You have to save me! You must take responsibility for your actions both as a man and as a magic caster. I cannot help you here." Abbot shook his head with a cold expression. As a magic caster, he found Hank's actions to be utterly despicable. Furthermore, Krasus had already made up his mind, and there was no point in trying to dissuade him. Even mentioning the Magus Tower couldn't deter him, so no one would be able to stop Krasus today. "Principal, should we step in? There are so many children watching." Grinton cast a concerned glance toward Novan. "I've always been a fan of the rules that Krasus had set for the Magus Tower. Those rules harbored the clean and decisive spirit of the knights, as well as the discipline and freedom that should belong to a magic caster. In my opinion, they should be the universal rules of the magic world. Unfortunately, Richard changed those rules over and over again, completely ruining them in the process. When justice is discarded, a magic caster is no longer worthy being called a magic caster." Novan looked at Krasus with a reminiscent smile as he said, "This is a very valuable lesson. I want the children of our school to see this and realize how important it is to be a good person before you try to achieve anything else. Even as a prodigy, he still has to uphold justice and abide by the rules. Isn't that what our Chaos City and Chaos School have been preaching all along?" Grinton nodded with a thoughtful expression. He turned to the children below the stage, and didn't say anything further. A component should be added to the magic caster trials that test one's nature, Mag thought to himself. He was simply relieved that Amy was unscathed. As for what Krasus was going to do, he could roughly guess his intentions. "Don't kill me. I won't do it ever again. I was only acting according to my master's orders. He told me to teach her a lesson and embarrass you. I couldn't beat her, so I didn't know what to do, that's why I used that sneak attack. Please don't kill me. I'm a prodigy, I'm only 16 years old, and I could become a great magic caster in the future. Hank's face was deathly pale, and he was rambling almost incoherently in his panic. He suddenly realized that the old man his master had denounced was not someone he could mess with. I won't kill you, but you don't deserve to possess magic. Krasus stepped forward abruptly. Hank wanted to evade in his horror, but his body was suddenly immobilized. Krasus laid his hand on Hank's head, and a red light flashed, immediately after which Hank collapsed to the ground with nothing but despair in his eyes. His mind realm had been destroyed, so he would never be able to cultivate in magic again. Tell Brent to come to Chaos City and explain this matter to me within 10 days. If I don't see him in 10 days, I'll go to Rodu and take care of him along with the entire Magus Tower. Krasus withdrew his hand, and turned to Abbott with a serious expression as he said, You can try to plot against me, but if anyone dares to touch Amy, I'll kill their entire family. If you don't think I'm enough of a threat, then throw Urian into the mix as well. I'll be sure to relay the message to Brent. Our Magus Tower concedes this match. Farewell. Abbott nodded with a solemn expression. He indicated to the other Magus Tower magic casters to pick up the crestfallen Hank, and all of them quickly exited the venue. George took one final glance at Amy before he left, and he felt as if there was a massive stone weighing down upon his chest. He was supposed to be a prodigy, but he had been comprehensively crushed. He made a promise to himself there and then that he had to work harder on his cultivation. The Magus Tower group had come in high spirits, but were now scurrying away like frightened dogs. The Magus Tower has conceded, so Chaos School wins. Karpa's voice spread throughout the entire venue. We won! The entire venue burst into loud celebrations. Elated smiles appeared on the faces of all of the students and teachers as they celebrated this hard-earned victory. The Chaos School students got in an excited huddle. They had just suffered the most brutal humiliation and were about to be swept, but Amy had descended like a ray of light, saving them from the clutches of defeat. Master, all the bad people ran away, so we've won, right? Amy held onto her staff as she turned to Krasus with an inquisitive expression. That's right, they were defeated by little Amy, so they lost. You won this match for Chaos School. Krasus nodded with a gratified smile. It was already completely beyond his expectations for Amy to reach such a level after just a month. Magic would become more and more difficult as one progressed, but Amy's super aptitude ensured that her cultivation path would be a lot easier. As for the parting words he had spoken to Abbott, those were actually words meant for everyone else to hear as well. Many prodigies had appeared on the Norland continent, but many of them had also died early deaths. There were always some people who didn't want to allow these prodigies to grow up. Mag Alex was a perfect example of this. As such, he had to make his and Urian's attitudes clear to the world. If anyone dared to attack Amy before she had fully developed, then they were going to be hunted down to all corners of the world by the Lords of Fire and Ice. I have to work hard as well. Mag slowly clenched his fists. He had successfully purchased a strength point the day prior, so it was time for him to work on his swordsmanship. In the future, he wanted to be the one standing in front of Amy, shielding her from danger. That's great. I knew Father wouldn't lie to me, I really can beat up all of the bad guys now. An elated smile appeared on Amy's face. However, a hint of concern then appeared in her eyes as she turned to Krasus, and said, But Master, why was that green fur monster so sad just then? Is he really going to be unable to cultivate magic from now on? If that's the case, then I feel really sorry for him. Little Amy, you have to remember that if you confirm someone to be your enemy, you can't show kindness to them. Otherwise, you and your loved ones will get hurt. Krasus looked into Amy's eyes with a serious expression on his face. Yes, Master. Amy looked into Krasus's eyes and gave a serious nod. Amy! 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 Collective cheers rang out across the entire venue. All of the students chanted Amy's name as if she were their hero. This is your moment. Learn to get used to this, as there will only be more and more people revering you from now on. Crassus smiled as he walked off the platform, leaving Amy to bask in the limelight. The deafening cheers threatened to raise the roof of the venue as everyone's pent-up emotions erupted. Following 4 consecutive years of defeat, a hard-earned victory had finally arrived. All of the teachers and students were full of elation and exhilaration. Amy raised her staff and accepted the cheers and applause in a slightly awkward manner. Her eyes scanned through the crowd, and a smile finally appeared on her face as she caught sight of an applauding Mag. "Let me protect this smile," Mag thought to himself with a wide smile on his face. Amy's meteoric rise was inevitable. From this day forth, she would become one of the most renowned young magic casters on the entire Norland continent. However, that fame would inevitably bring more and more trouble. Student Amy has single-handedly won the match for our Chaos School today and protected our school's glory. At the same time, the other representatives have fought until the very end and displayed an unyielding spirit. Today's victory belongs to all of you. Novan stood up and applauded the students on the stage. Klaus and the other representatives were a little embarrassed to receive such glowing praise, but they couldn't suppress the smiles on their faces. "I'm a student of Chaos School, so this is something that I should be doing." Amy didn't think her feats were worthy of being lauded. "I hope you can always remember what you just said, student Amy. You are the future pride and hope of Chaos School." A smile appeared on Novan's face. "I'm also very proud to be a student of Chaos School." Amy nodded with an earnest expression. The applause from below the stage became even more enthusiastic. All of the students wore excited expressions on their faces. It was a great honor to receive such splendid praise from the principal, and all of them were hoping to win the same honor someday for themselves. "You're the best, Amy. I'm so proud of you." Daphne clapped her little hands like a fanatical little fangirl. "Can I get off the stage now? My arm is getting sore from raising my staff." As the raucous cheers continued, Amy's smile gradually disappeared as she turned to Carpus with a pitiable expression. "Of course you can." Carpus faltered momentarily upon hearing that before nodding with a smile. She really was an adorable little girl. If it wasn't for the fact that Krasua and Urian had already taken her under their wings, he would definitely take her as his disciple. "Yay!" An elated smile appeared on Amy's face, and she recited a spell in her heart to shrink her staff before preparing to get off the stage. "Student Amy, I thank you on behalf of the Chaos School representatives. Thank you for winning this match." Klaus led all of the other representatives to her, and they bowed in unison with their hearts clasped over their chests. All of them were looking at her with gratitude in their eyes. "No problem. All of you have to work hard too. That way, you'll be able to beat up the bad guys when they come next time." Amy clenched little fist in encouragement, putting on what she thought to be a mature expression. "We will." Klaus nodded as he tried to suppress his laughter. This little girl was far too adorable. "Father!" Amy rushed off the stage, and immediately threw herself at Mag with an elated expression. "You did really well today, Amy." Mag picked her up and spun her in a circle. He then looked at her with a doting expression, and said, "What do you want for lunch today? Father will cook anything you want." Outside Chaos School, George took a glance back at the school gates before turning to Abbott with a dejected expression, and asked, "Are we going back to Rodu now? We have no choice but to leave right away. Master Krasso only spared us due to his past connection with the Magus Tower, but that little girl's other master is not going to be so kind. If we don't go now, we may have to stay here forever." Abbott nodded with a grave expression as he glanced at Hank, who was being helped onto a horse-drawn carriage by his companions. "When I come back next time, I'm going to become more powerful and return the humiliation that you brought me." George made a promise to himself as he, too, climbed onto a horse-drawn carriage. All 10 of the Magus Tower horse-drawn carriages quickly sped away from Chaos School, heading toward the city gates. When the group of horse-drawn carriages exited the city gates, less than a day had passed since they had last come through those very same gates. They had come with ambitions to conquer and dominate, but they were now scurrying away with their tails between their legs. After traveling for close to 10 kilometers, they reached a forest, and one of the horse-drawn carriages suddenly came to a stop as a commotion rang out. "What's going on?" Abbott emerged from the first horse-drawn carriage with furrowed brows. The coach driver pointed at the carriage, and was about to offer an explanation. "I can't go back. I'm just a useless piece of trash now. My master won't want to see me." Hank crawled out from the carriage, and his hand slipped, causing him to tumble down onto the ground. "Hank!" Two young boys emerged from the carriage to help him up. "Leave me alone. We're different now, you're all prodigies destined for great things, while I'm just a useless piece of trash who can never use magic again." Hank raised his head and roared in a heartbroken voice. His eyes were completely bloodshot, and he was in complete despair. The two young boys faltered upon hearing that, and they both turned to Abbott for help. "Have you made up your mind?" Abbott asked. Hank was Brent's best disciple, and had extremely bright prospects. As such, it was understandable for him to exhibit such a strong reaction after having his mind realm destroyed. "Yes." Hank looked at Abbott with bloodshot eyes, and gritted teeth as he said, "Don't worry, I'll survive. I'll find a way to cultivate magic again, and I'll come back to exact my revenge someday." Abbott looked at Hank in silence for a while before nodding as he said, "All right, you can go, then." Hank took a glance at the young boys on the carriage, gritting his teeth as he rose to his feet. He turned and stumbled into the forest, quickly disappearing from everyone's line of sight. "Keep going, and go faster this time." Abbott re-entered his carriage, and the line of carriages continued onward. "Won't Hank be in danger if he leaves now?" George turned to Abbott with a concerned expression. "If he doesn't leave now, he would very likely be killed after returning to the Magus Tower. He has to take responsibility for his actions, and he's no use to anyone as someone who can no longer cultivate magic," Abbott replied calmly. George understood what Abbott was saying, and he clenched his fists as he fell silent for a while. He then asked, "Will he be able to find a way to cultivate magic again?" "There are no records in history of anyone who was able to cultivate magic again after having their mind realm damaged, so there's no way unless he cultivates sorcery." Abbott shook his head. "I see." George nodded with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. Back when they had arrived at Chaos School, they were planning on dominating in the match. They'd then take a tour of Chaos City for a few days. However, they had been sent scurrying back in less than a day, and Hank had lost his ability to cultivate magic. As for cultivating sorcery, that was a path that no magic caster wanted to take. No one would want to be reduced to that half-human, half-ghost state and risk losing their soul for eternity. George was sure that a person as proud as Hank wouldn't stoop to such a low level. Following the match, all of the students were led back to their classrooms by their teachers. However, the excitement on their faces suggested that they wouldn't be paying much attention to their lessons anyway. Meanwhile, Amy was given the entire day off by Krasu as a reward for her performance. "Bye-bye, Master Krasu." Amy waved farewell to Krasu at the entrance of the venue. "Goodbye, little Amy." Krasu stood beside Novan and smiled as he waved back at Amy. He looked on until Amy and Mag disappeared from sight before turning to Novan with a smile as he asked, "What did you want to speak to me about?" Novan smiled as he replied, "Nothing much. I was just wondering when you would deliver on your promise. I'm going to gather all of the Chaos School teachers for a meeting soon, and I want you to come with me to discuss setting up melee magic lessons for our school." "You're getting a little impatient, I see. Aren't you worried that all of the students would ditch long-range magic to study melee magic?" Krasu asked with a smile. "Why would I be worried about that? I've always been an advocate of free choice for our students. Besides, Amy displayed the might of both long-range and melee magic today, so it's up to them how they want to decide." The priority for our school is to provide a diverse range of lessons so the students can learn whatever they want. In the end, they'll choose what's most suitable for them. Novan was quite calm and collected. Krasua took a glance at Novan, and nodded as he said, "All right, but as discussed, I can teach the students, but they don't count as my disciples. Amy is my only disciple. And they'll only call you teacher, not master. You can refer to them as students." Novan nodded in response. "Students? I like that title." Krasua chuckled. "You just said you'd be cutting all ties with the Magus Tower from this day forth, were you serious?" Novan turned to Krasua with a curious expression. "Of course. I made the announcement in front of so many people, am I supposed to just revoke it?" Krasua pursed his lips, and looked up at the sky with a slightly dejected expression as he said, "The Magus Tower is no longer the Magus Tower that it once was. I asked Arthur to bring all my things here, so I'll no longer have anything to do with them. Richard will surely be very happy to hear this. Chaos School welcomes you." Novan extended a hand toward Krasua with a smile on his face. Krasua turned to look at Novan with a suspicious expression as he asked, "You planned this all along, didn't you? I invited you 20 years ago, but you rejected me on that occasion. Otherwise, you would be the principal of Chaos School now," Novan replied. "Looks like I made a wise decision back then." Krasua shook Novan's hand, and both of them burst into laughter. "Young master, didn't you say we were going to Mamie restaurant for lunch? Can we go now?" Ingw stood outside Blower's door with an exasperated look. "Give me another half an hour. I'm getting changed." Blower's lazy voice sounded in reply from within the room. "You need half an hour to get changed? What are you, a woman?" Ingw grumbled internally, but he couldn't do anything. He strode out into the small courtyard and took a deep breath of fresh air. If he were to stay in there any longer, he felt like he was going to pass out from rage sooner or later. "Your Highness! Your Highness!" Phyrrhus rushed into the cave with an animated expression, yelling at the top of her lungs as she did so. All the while, the countless cheeky branches draping down around her attempted to stall her in her progress. "What's gotten you so excited today, Phyrrhus? There's a lot of range of motion from your running, but they still look really small." Irina turned with a serious expression as her gaze fell on Phyrrhus' heaving chest. "Your Highness! I'm still growing." Phyrrhus tried to reason with Irina, but clearly even she wasn't convinced with her own argument. "They're about the same size as mine back when I was 13. Irina nodded. "Don't say that, Your Highness. I'm going to cry." Phyrrhus' face was plastered with a pitiable expression. "Oh? I've been a little bored today, so I'd be keen to see you cry." Irina's eyes lit up as she nodded with a smile. Phyrrhus felt as if she had been dealt a heavy blow. As expected, the princess couldn't be communicated with in a conventional manner. "What's gotten you in such a hurry?" Irina asked with a smile. "Snare's back, would you like to see him?" After the ribbing she had received, Phyrrhus had almost forgotten the news she had come to deliver. "Tell him to come in." Irina immediately clenched her fists with undisguised excitement on her face. "Yes." Phyrrhus turned and rushed out of the cave. The Tree of Life seemed to have sensed Irina's emotions, and it parted to allow Phyrrhus through. After a short while, Phyrrhus led into the cave a tall and thin golden-haired elf, who quickly made his way toward Irina. "Snare pays his respects, Your Highness." The elf stopped 2 meters in front of Irina and extended a respectful bow. Irina was silent for a moment as she looked at Snare before remarking, "You've lost weight, golden turtle boy." Phyrrhus was initially quite nervous, but she almost burst into laughter upon hearing that. She looked up into the sky and turned her head away, trying her best to smother her laughter. "You've also lost weight, Your Highness." Snare faltered momentarily before a peculiar expression appeared on his face. He was already resigned to this nickname that he had had for over a decade, but it was still a little strange for an elf to be known as Golden Turtle Boy. Really? Looks like my recent weight loss regime is paying dividends. You've got a good eye, Golden Turtle Boy. Irina nodded, but the smile on her face soon receded as she raised her hand. A barrier of golden light immediately enshrouded the entire cave, and she looked at SAHDR as she asked, "What were your findings from your trip to Rodu? Are Alex and my child still alive? If so, where are they now?" "Your Highness, I uncovered a lot of useful information during my trip. After cross-referencing the information that I've dug up during the past few trips, I can confirm that Master Alex and your child are still alive. The fire from 3 years ago was nothing but a hoax, and no one actually died in it." SAHDR reported on his findings. "That's great." An excited expression appeared on Fira's face. "So where are they now?" Irina also wore an animated expression as she unconsciously took a step forward. "I don't know. In fact, the entirety of Rodu and our elven race most likely do not know of their location, either. However, the fact that no one knows where they are makes them quite safe." SAHDR shook his head in response. "Josh has also been unable to locate them after all this time." Irina clenched her fists as she struggled to keep her emotions under control. She fell silent for a moment before asking, "Who played a part in the incident from 3 years ago? Have you found out?" "I investigated many people from Rodu, and all of the evidence point toward the Magus Tower. Aside from those demons, the rest of the assassins sent to kill Master Alex were most likely all Magus Tower magic casters," SAHDR replied. "Josh told me that all of those magic casters were traitors. They struck deals with the demons before attacking Alex, and all of them have since been executed by the Magus Tower." Irina nodded in response. "But, Your Highness, according to my investigation, all of the great magic casters involved in that incident are still alive. In fact, they all currently hold high posts in the Magus Tower. The ones that were killed were only a few 9th-tier magic casters. At the height of Master Alex's powers, a 9th-tier magic caster wouldn't even be able to take a single sword strike from him, so..." SAHDR's voice trailed off as a grim expression appeared on his face. "So what you're saying is, Josh is lying to me?" Irina's expression immediately turned cold as she furrowed her brows in deep thought. After a while, she said, "Josh has great influence over the Magus Tower, and his confidence in his battle for the throne against Sean mostly lies in the Magus Tower, so there's no way that he would be unaware which magic casters were involved in that incident. He made a promise to me in his letters that all of those people had been executed. Not only that, he told me that Alex and my child were dead, and that he had discovered their charred bodies." SAHDR hesitated momentarily before looking up at Irina, and said, "Your Highness, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if I should say it." "Go ahead." Irina nodded. SAHDR wore a serious expression as he said, "With Master Alex's influence over the citizens and the army of the Roth Empire in conjunction with his fearsome power, no one would dare to assassinate Master Alex in such a brazen attack without a thorough plan and absolute assurance of success. The demons do not have anywhere near sufficient power and resources to pull off such a feat, and I trust that our elven race would never cooperate with the demons. As such, there had to have been a middleman in the equation. This middleman must have enough power to command the great magic casters of the Magus Tower, and also handle the backlash from the royal family and the army following Master Alex's demise. There aren't many people in Rodu who fit that description. Aside from the king of the Roth Empire, only Josh Edward is capable of filling that role. Sean's influence is limited to the army, so he won't be able to call on any great magic casters from the Magus Tower. Alex already completely removed himself from the army 5 years ago, so he posed no threat to the Empire, and the Empire had no incentive to target him." Irina's expression cooled even further as she clenched her fists in puzzlement, and said, "Why would he do that? Back when we were in Rodu, he had been very good friends with Alex and me, and never displayed any animosity toward us. Master Alex hailed, and had fought alongside the first prince for many years. Once the battle for the throne reached a climax between the two princes, it wouldn't be difficult to foresee whom he would side with. With Master Alex's power and influence, his decision could prove to be very instrumental, SAHDR replied. But Alex has never pledged his support for Sean. You're telling me Josh planned this assassination just so he could get rid of a volatile factor standing between him and the throne? Irina murmured to herself as her long silver hair suddenly rose into the air. Countless branches on the Tree of Life also abruptly began to tremor in unison. Which members of our elven tribe participated in the assassination? Irina asked. The leader of the Kral family, SAHDR replied. Irina nodded before walking out of the cave. The branches of the Tree of Life parted as if it were bidding farewell to its ruler. Where are you going, Your Highness? Firis asked with a concerned look. I'm going to kill someone, Irina replied coldly. Golden light flashed, and she disappeared on the spot. A figure in a white dress drifted over the wind forest. She would only have to tap a branch gently with her foot before her body appeared over 10 meters away. Her long silver hair danced in the wind, giving her the appearance of an ethereal goddess. Whoa! Isn't that Princess Irina? It is. That's the princess. It's been 3 years, the princess has finally come out from that cave. She's still just as stunning as ever. As expected of the #1 prodigy of our elven race. Many elves soon noticed the figure gliding over the forest, and they all extended respectful bows toward her. All of the younger elves wore reverent expressions as they looked on from below. 3 years. It had been 3 years since Princess Irina returned to the Wind Forest, but it was the first time that she had set foot outside of that cave. Mistress Helena, the princess has left the cave. Hetty rushed into a cave with an urgent expression on her face. She looked at Helena, who was looking up at the star charts on the walls of the cave, and asked, could it be that she's trying to run away again? SAHDR came back to the Wind Forest today, right? Helena turned to Hetty with a calm expression. Hetty faltered momentarily upon hearing that before nodding in response. Yes, he only just came back, and he has most likely visited the princess already. Looks like he gathered a lot of information from his trip to Rodu. I wonder if he ended up finding that little brat, and I'm curious to see whom she's going to take revenge on now. An intrigued smile appeared on Helena's face. What should we do now, mistress? Hetty looked at Helena with a nervous expression. Let's go and have a look. No matter whom she's hunting down now, it has to be an ally of ours. Looks like I underestimated that snare. Helena smiled and waved her wand, upon which she disappeared from the cave. Is that B*TCH trying to take revenge for what happened all those years ago? Humph, she can barely keep herself alive. Does she still think that she's the revered elven princess of the past? Hetty gritted her teeth before chanting a spell. Shen then pointed her wand toward the ground, and a plume of black smoke rose into the air, upon which she also disappeared from the cave. In the Kral family's territory, a vast expanse of forest had been felled, and a grand white castle had been erected in its place. The members of the Kral family wore lavish clothing, while other elves in plain clothes acted as servants. The latter would often be abused and scolded by the members of the Kral family, in response to which they could only lower their heads and apologize. Schubert was the leader of the Kral family, a 10th-tier great magic caster specializing in wood magic. During the war among species, he had contributed greatly to the elven race's cause, and had received many benefits from the series of changes that Helena had made in the past few decades. For example, he had received this vast and fertile stretch of land as his territory, where the Kral family's estate had been built. He had also been assigned some servants and become part of the elven nobility. The powerful Schubert also dictated the punishments handed down in the elven race. He held an extremely high position, and under his reign, the law and order system had been extremely harsh in the past few years. For ordinary elves, just a small mistake could get them thrown into prison, and as such, everyone had invented the nickname Smiling Devil for Schubert. At this moment, a banquet was being held in the Kral family's castle. Kral wore a set of lavish golden robes and sat lazily in the main seat. He held a jade goblet in his hand and looked on at the dancing elves before him with relish. There was an elf standing behind him, fanning him with a large leaf, while another elf carefully massaged his shoulders. There was also another elf kneeling in front of him, removing the skin from grapes before feeding them to Schubert one by one. She did so with extreme concentration and focus, not daring to make even the slightest mistake. The guests at the banquet were all members of the Kral family as well as the leaders of families that had close ties with the Kral family. They drank wine while enjoying the dances being performed and basking in the enjoyment of being attended to by other female elves. "Schubert, get your *SS out here right now." Right at that moment, a cold voice rang out throughout the entire Kral family castle, ringing loudly in the ears of all of the elves within. The music came to an abrupt stop, as did the dancing elves. All of them were at a loss for what to do, and they hung their heads low as they didn't dare to say or do anything. "Who goes there? How dare you speak to Master Schubert in such a disrespectful manner? Anyone in the elven race who shows disrespect to Master Schubert should be locked up right away." All of the guests immediately rose to their feet with enraged expressions. Pr. Princess Irina. In contrast, Schubert shuddered with a hint of fear in his eyes, and unconsciously sat up straighter in his seat. He looked outside with surprise and panic etched on his face. "Princess Irina." The guests' expressions all changed upon hearing that. All of them fell silent as they looked at each other, at a loss for what to do. It had been 3 years since Princess Irina had returned to the Wind Forest, but she had been in seclusion this entire time. Everyone had almost forgotten her existence, but who would have thought that she would suddenly leave her seclusion to come here? Furthermore, she appeared to be quite enraged, and no one knew what was going on. However, no one dared to say anything about locking her up again. The princess's influence in the elven race was below only the queen and mistress Helena, so she was not someone that they could mess with. "Princess Irina." The younger elves' eyes immediately lit up with joy and excitement at the sight of their idol. "Let me see what the princess wants." Schubert quickly calmed down before making his way outside. A smile had appeared on his face, but all of the people that were most familiar with him felt a chill run down their spines at the sight of that smile. That was his signature smile that he revealed before delivering his cruelest verdicts, and it was what earned him the nickname Smiling Devil. "Let's go have a look as well." The guests all hesitated momentarily before following him outside. "Has Her Highness come out of seclusion to reform the elven race? When will these torturous days come to an end? I feel like I won't be able to handle this for much longer." After Schubert and the guests had left, the elf that was feeding Schubert grapes collapsed to the ground as tears welled up in her eyes. "The queen and the officials that she has promoted haven't paid any heed to our suffering. They see us as inferior life forms rather than equals. Aside from the elven princess, there's probably no one else who can change this situation." A dancer sobbed into her hand, and a wound left by a whip was clearly visible as she raised her arm to wipe away her tears. "Even Her Highness will most likely be unable to change anything. Besides, there's a good chance that she doesn't even care. Otherwise, why didn't she do anything when she returned to the Wind Forest 3 years ago? This is our fate. We should have left back when we had the option to leave this place 50 years ago." A tall and slender elven dancer heaved a dejected sigh. All of the elves hung their heads low in despair upon hearing that. Can elves like those still be referred to as elves? Irina stood on the tip of the tallest tree in front of the castle and looked down at the Kral family members with a frosty expression. She had seen them abuse their elven servants and stomp their dignity into the ground. It was a sight that had truly disgusted her. "Schubert pays his respects, Your Highness. Please forgive me for not making ample preparations for your visit. What would you like to see me for today?" Schubert strode out from his castle, and looked up at Irina with a calm smile on his face. "I'm here to kill you today." Irina looked down at Schubert with a serious expression and she raised her right arm, upon which a staff as tall as a grown person appeared in her hand. The elves outside the castle all stood off to the side in silence upon seeing Irina's arrival. Like the guests of the Kral family, all of them simply thought that the princess wanted to discuss something with Schubert. However, everyone was stunned at the sight of the staff that had appeared in Irina's hand, and they were all wondering if they had heard what she had just said wrong. Did Her Highness just say that she was going to kill Master Schubert? All of the guests' eyes widened with incredulity upon hearing that. Was Irina going to do something this shocking and inexplicable as soon as she came out of her 3-year-long seclusion? Schubert's expression also changed slightly, but he soon adopted a calm and composed smile again as he asked, "Your Highness, what crime have I committed? And what reason do you have to kill me? I am the official presiding over punishments in our elven race, and you have no right to attack me unless you're acting on the orders of the Queen. You've been in seclusion for 3 years, so perhaps you've developed some sort of misunderstanding regarding me during that time. If you have some queries, you can get answers from Mistress Helena or Her Majesty. Please do not do anything rash and embarrass yourself in front of so many of our brethren. I don't need permission to kill anyone." Irina pointed her staff at Schubert, and said coldly, "Besides, you're only an official presiding over punishments, but you seem to think that this is your kingdom. All of our elven brethren were born as equals from the Tree of Life, so what gives your family the right to treat them in such an abhorrent manner? Just that crime alone is enough to warrant your execution." The Kral family members' expressions immediately changed drastically upon hearing that. Not only was the princess here to kill Schubert, her words implied that she was going to wipe out their entire family. In contrast, all of the Kral family servants' eyes lit up upon hearing that. All of them turned to look up at Irina as if they were looking at their savior. The princess was just as dazzling as ever, as if there were light radiating from her body. "Did you hear that? Her Highness really is here to change everything." The elf that had collapsed to the ground stood up as her voice trembled with excitement. "Am I dreaming? Did Her Highness hear our prayers? Or perhaps the Tree of Life told her our stories?" The dancer who had spoken earlier also wore an elated expression. The hierarchy in the elven race has already been established, and it would be almost impossible to change this situation. Even Her Highness will most likely be unable to do so. The tall and slender elf was murmuring to herself in a quiet voice that only she could hear, but her eyes were also filled with hope as she looked up at Irina. Perhaps the princess could effect another miracle. After all, she was certainly no stranger to creating legends. "I've done my duty by maintaining law and order within the elven race, so I deserve everything that I have today. Her Majesty bestowed all of this upon our Kral family. Not only that, the Baybilly family, the Brewster family, the North family. All of them were also rewarded by the Queen, and are enjoying the benefits that the Elven Revolution has brought to them. At the same time, we're all working to make the Elven race more powerful and prosperous. Your Highness, are you going to kill them as well and doom the entire Elven race?" Schubert looked at Irina with a mocking smile, clearly not fearful of her in the slightest. The hierarchy of the Elven race had been established for several decades, and was already set in stone. No matter how powerful Irina was or how much influence she possessed, she was powerless to stop this trend. The entire Elven race had been split among the major families, including the royal family. Was she going to kill everyone? The guests and members of the Kral family all heaved a collective sigh of relief upon hearing that. It was just as Schubert had said, this situation was now the norm for the Elven race. The Kral was only one of the major families, there were also other major families as well as countless smaller aristocratic families that made up the Elven hierarchy. Those who weren't powerful and weren't part of any of those families were reduced to lowly slaves. This was already a mature social system, and killing a few people wouldn't change anything. The elves had perhaps been free in the past, but after experiencing the joy that power could bring, it would be impossible to ask them to regress to their former state. If Irina insisted on doing that, then she would be the one destroyed in the end as opposed to the major families. Even as the elven princess, she did not have the power to reverse this trend. The oppressed elves all hung their heads in a dejected manner. If even the princess couldn't save them, then they would most likely have to spend their entire lives as slaves without any light at the end of the tunnel. They had once freely strolled in the wind forest, gathering dew, picking wild fruits, and taking naps on the trees when they were tired. However, those days of freedom had since ceased to exist. They were going to be forever seen as inferior beings and be insulted and oppressed. I'm not in a hurry to kill them, but you must die today. Irina looked at the pitiful elven servants, and her expression became even colder as she pointed her staff at Schubert. Binding light. A semi-transparent golden ball of light erupted from the golden crystal ball on the tip of her staff. It then disappeared before instantly reappearing in front of Schubert, threatening to encapsulate him within. Your Highness, Mistress Helena, and Her Majesty definitely won't allow you to do something like this. I advise you to stop what you're doing right away. You're only a princess, not the queen. Schubert's expression cooled as the smile disappeared from his face. He was also a great magic caster, and he didn't fear Irina in a battle. Wood light shield. A green curved light shield appeared before him, protecting his body from oncoming attacks. The golden ball of light crashed into the green light shield before enshrouding Schubert, but it was prevented from being able to contract due to that green light shield. Schubert didn't detect any threat from the ball of light around him, so he ignored it for now. At the same time, he began to chant, "All wood elves between heaven and earth, heed my call. Manifest yourselves before me, transform into dazzling stars, and destroy all of my enemies." As Schubert chanted his spell, a massive green vortex appeared in the air above the castle. Countless wood elements in the wind forest surged toward the vortex relentlessly, making its green color richer and deeper in the process. At the same time, the vortex began to rotate at a high speed, sweeping up gale force winds. A series of shiny golden spots emerged within the vortex as if something were about to descend. It's Master Schubert's ultimate forbidden spell, the Forest Star Storm, someone exclaimed. All of the other elves all stumbled back in a panicked retreat upon hearing that. Irina's sudden attack had caught everyone off guard, and Schubert was using his most powerful attack from the get-go. This was shaping up to be an epic duel. Holy light, heed my call. Cleanse this world of all impurities. Irina raised her staff over her head with a holy expression. A pillar of holy light pierced through the green vortex and shone down upon her, draping a holy cloak of golden light over her body. Scintillating light erupted from her staff, upon which a burst of incandescent holy light crashed toward the vortex.